second. We good here? I know it sounds weird that I need a microphone for a room like this, but if I project my voice too loud, and I've done it quite a few times over a period of a few days, I end up losing my voice by like the fourth or fifth event. So that's why I asked for microphones. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you guys for having me. I've never been here before. I've never been to this country before. And it's basically like a better version of America. You guys sound cooler with your voices. You have very cool accents. I'm not used to it. Sometimes I don't know what somebody's saying to me. But I figure it out along the way. And it's really cool. So far I've been in Perth. I've been over here. I had no idea there was a time difference. So I had to rush over here when I landed about 2 hours ago. And tomorrow I go to Melbourne. Is that how I pronounce it? So the R is fake. It doesn't actually exist. Okay, so I'm going to Melbourne tomorrow. And we continue. So again, thank you guys for having me in your city today. I never thought that everything would come this far in such a short period of time. And I'm getting a little emotional just because it's like,
You've done a great job, Jason.
It's crazy. It's happiness. It's amazing. It wasn't like this yesterday, so there's something different here, but it's just amazing to be able to see how many people you can impact in such a short period of time when you come together to make a change. And I didn't know that it was going to come this far. I didn't know that there were going to be 400 centers all over the world. I didn't know that any of that was going to happen before all of this started. As a matter of fact, when it all started, I didn't even really want to do it. I didn't want to do it because I didn't know what all of this was. I didn't understand what it was. And there was just a voice in me that on one side, on the side of like the ego and the mind, kept saying, don't do it. And then my heart just kept not letting me listen to that voice. And the amount of people that listening to that voice changed in terms of their lives is the most gratifying thing in the world. There are kids that were nonverbal autistic children that were suddenly able to speak, individuals that were blind for 5 years that are able to see, people that were deaf for 10 years that are able to hear. And you know, I'm on the go a lot, so I don't get a chance to sit with that and understand the impact of that. And I think that's just what happened over the past few minutes. I was listening to this beautiful family speak and share, and it's real. It's real. You know, when you're trading in the stock market, money is just a number on the screen. When you withdraw that, you see the cash, it's a whole different ballgame. It hits differently. And before I came on this tour, and I've been on other tours, there are numbers on a screen. Okay, so every week we see another 4 centers, another 5 centers. Wow. But what does that really mean? It means a lot more than just another center on a screen. It means a lot more than just a number rising. Because the butterfly effect that every single one of you create just by coming here changes a lot of people's lives around the world. So, sure, am I part of this puzzle? Yes. But I'm not the only piece in it. I'm not the only piece in it. Without the center owners standing up and saying, we're ready to go, let's make it happen, the numbers on the screen wouldn't be changing. The deeper implications of what that means wouldn't be happening. And it's because everybody's standing up to make that change. And that's really the motto of everything that I do with Unified. It's a deeper understanding of one person can't change the world by themselves. One person can inspire many other people to take action. But ultimately, you're going to need everybody else on a collective level to take an action to make that change. That's why with Unified, we don't take $10 million donations from an investor, because then it's that energy in the system. If you want to see a collective shift in the world, you're going to have to do it collectively. You're going to need as many people involved simultaneously to make that change. And that's what I've been really understanding over the past few years, and that's what I've been experiencing over the past few minutes, which is why I got emotional, because I'm seeing that these words that have been coming out of my mouth, I'm seeing it in play, and it's extremely powerful. So thank you very much for being here. And thank you to the beautiful family of giants who put this place together. Now, we're going to dive in, and I want you guys to really understand health from a different perspective. We'll talk about the system, we'll answer questions, we'll have time for all those things. But my goal today is not to tell you guys what to think. My goal today is to teach you guys how to think in a different way. It's to give you guys a foundational understanding of certain laws and how they work. Therefore, you don't have to trust what I say. You don't have to trust what somebody else says. You can listen to other people that may have experience on certain topics, but if you have certain tools that I'm going to share with you guys today, certain perceptions of different ways of understanding the world and health and wellness as a whole, again, you're not going to need to externalize that power anymore. You understand what's true over what isn't. It's not a level of trust outside of yourself anymore, but knowingness from within. So I want to explain how this whole thing works, but before that, we have to understand health from a deeper perspective. I want to ask you guys a question. You guys can just shout out any word that comes to mind. If I asked you how to define health in one word, what would that word mean to you? Any word, out loud.
Balance.
Balance. First time. I would usually stop right there. Balance. Let ease, balance, all those things having to do with health. So that would mean that disease is imbalance. So balance can be coherent energy, and imbalance can be distorted energy. Now there's going to be a quote that I keep coming back to throughout what I shared today. It's a quote, I think Nikola Tesla said it, but we never know what history is true or not anymore. But according to history, Nikola Tesla said, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and you will understand the secrets of the universe. I'm going to keep bringing it back to that. Because right now in the world that we live in today, we've forgotten the tree trunk and we pay attention to the branches, which is the physical world. But when you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, which is what all matter is based on, that's what all matter, anything physical, can be deduced to. That's where the secrets lie. And they're not actually secrets. It's very easy to understand when you start changing your mindset and thinking in that way, as opposed to the more surface way of physicality. Physicality is real, but it's not your ultimate truth. There's something deeper that's going on here. So health is balance. Disease is imbalance. Health is coherence. Disease is distortion. There's going to be two laws that I want to start with teaching over here, having to do with the environment and what we were all taught probably when we were 10, 11, or 12 years old in science class, called the law of conservation of energy. Before I get to that, I'm going to give you guys three very simple ways to understand health over disease with three different avenues and vehicles that you can use to reach one over the other. The first one is cellular charge. If anybody can't hear me, let me know. I'll get the mic soon. The first one is cellular charge. The second one is pH. And the third one is oxygen level. And there are many more, but this is going to be your base. 1, 2, 3. We're going to start with this one. Your health starts within your body. It starts literally within your cells. That's where everything begins, within your DNA and your cells. Your cells have an electrical charge to them. Factually. I'm not giving you an opinion. I'm not giving you a belief. I'm giving you a fact. You can measure the electrical charge in what they call millivolts, or MV for short, of every single cell. Now, you have, without getting into numbers and all the complexity of it, we're going to make it simple. Let's call this neutral. Let's call this low. Let's call this high. A low electrical charge is disease. A high electrical charge is health. I'm giving you facts over here. We'll explain what that means in a second. That means that the higher the charge in your cells, the more energy they have to flow through them, the easier energy will move, and you won't have a dis-ease. Dis-ease of what? Of the flow of energy. That's what it all comes down to. Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. You will understand the secrets of the universe. This is one of them. Higher electrical charge is what we're all aiming for. Breath work, for example. When you take oxygen, oxygen does what to a fire? Gives it a whole lot more to grow. And the opposite of oxygen does what to a fire? It puts it out. You are a walking fire. When you give more energy, oxygen, alkalinity, we'll talk about that in a second, and cellular charge, you allow for the body to flow in the way that it needs to flow. We'll come back to cellular charge in just a moment. Let's talk about pH. We have neutral, let's call it around 7. What is lower called?
Acidic.
Acidic. What is higher called? Alkaline. Or base. People can call it that too, but this is what we call alkaline. Really, this is more like 7.2 to 7.4. On this side of the spectrum, you experience disease. Every cancer patient, you check their pH of their body, you will not have an alkaline pH. You will always have an acidic pH in the blood and the body as a whole. That's something you can check with simple pH strips that you can get on Amazon. Doesn't take a doctor, doesn't take a special test, super simple. On the more alkaline side, you experience health. Now here's a little secret. This and this are not different. Because to get to pH, you use voltage. It's the same exact thing expressed differently. Let's go to the last one, oxygen levels. Let's call this neutral. Before I write that down, I'll give you guys a fact that you can look up. There's a doctor named Dr. Otto Warburg. In the early 1900s, I believe, he won the Nobel Prize for proving the following. When you deprive a single cell of 35% of its oxygen for 48 hours, that cell becomes cancerous. Again, he won the Nobel Prize for this. When you deprive a single cell of 35% of its oxygen for 48 hours, that cell becomes cancerous. What is it telling us? It's telling us that when you have oxygen deprivation, you experience disease. And when you have oxygen sufficiency or surplus, you experience health. And when you're experiencing a deficiency, you're going to need to bring it into a surplus in order to bring the scales back to neutrality of where you actually need to be to remain healthy. Same thing as what you're seeing above. So what do you see here? You see 3 different mediums. You see cellular charge, you see pH, and you see oxygen. They are the same exact thing expressed in a different way. High, high, high is good, and low, low, low is not good. Now some of you may say, well, how do I measure my cellular millivoltage? Well, we just established that your pH is a reflection of it. And so are your oxygen levels. So we could go the route of making it super hard and getting high technology to figure that one out, because it's not the simplest thing to do. But we don't need to do that. Because if you have a messed up or acidic pH, your cellular millivoltage is not where it should be. Neither are your oxygen levels. And if you don't want to check pH, but you want to check your oxygen levels, which is also an easy thing to do, low oxygen levels in the body will render a more acidic pH and a low cellular millivoltage. And the exact opposite will render the exact opposite. Now here's the punchline of what I'm actually telling you. Does this make sense so far? Now let's take it a step further. For a very long time, we've been taught that cancer is the problem. We've been taught that the disease is something that we have to kill. That's not what's going on here. The disease is not the problem. The problem is what is allowing the disease to exist in the first place. And that has to do with your environment. So if you just change the environment, for example, instead of saying I need to kill the cancer, Let's say I need to raise my cellular millivoltage, because cancer can't exist in an environment like this. Cancer can't exist in an environment like this, and cancer can't exist in an environment like this. So you have two choices. You can either kill the thing, or simply change the environment to make that thing cease to exist. The problem with the second way that I just said is that it loses a lot of people in power, a lot of money. And they don't like that. They don't like that at all. That's why there are certain narratives pushed to tell us stay away from hydrogen peroxide, which is H2O2. It increases oxygen in your body. Hydrogen peroxide is actually naturally occurring in your body as your first line of defense when dealing with a problem, when dealing with something that you have to fight. Because it's oxygen that saves you. Now, with that knowledge, we understand that it's the environment that you have to shift. We've been looking at the wrong thing all along. Oh, I need an eraser. Here it is. Does all of that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions before we keep going? Yes.
When you talk of oxygen, like higher oxygen in the body, and then we hear about antioxidants.
Yep.
How do they correlate? Is antioxidants a bad thing in relation?
That's a very good question, and I don't know the exact science of, so I don't want to answer something I don't know. There are certain parts of the body that work without oxygen. So there's aerobic bacteria and anaerobic. Anaerobic means no oxygen. Anaerobic is not bad. There's just a place for something like that. I would assume antioxidants have something to do with that, but I don't know, so I don't want to speak on something like that. What I'm speaking on is more the basis of understanding without medical school. So I can learn that and get back to you on that later. Yes?
You said the two tests, well, the pH one was the strength. What was the one for oxygen that you said you can test for the oxygen?
You can buy certain things on Amazon that like goes on your finger.
O2.
Yeah. And you can, it's like a sensor that checks the percentage of your oxygen.
And which percentage would you say is then healthy?
Good?
Yeah.
Above 98, 96, 95, you're starting to get into like bad
This
places.
is less than that.
Yeah. Now there's a number that's still in the 90s that you really can't live at that point. It's not a big spectrum that we're talking about. You're talking about like decimal points over there when it comes to oxygen level. But look that one up to understand the exact numbers. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's more of the big picture principle of the importance of oxygen. Look that up when you get the test and you'll get the proper answers. And don't listen to what the test tells you. Look it up elsewhere. I'll tell you why I say that. Because blood tests, for example, you know, like high cholesterol, what deems high cholesterol changes based on the country that you're in? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So in Japan, I could be normal, but in America, I'll be high. How does that make sense? Because they're manipulating data. That's why I'm saying go and do their research on more alternative aspects of things and find common themes and take it from there. But it should be about 98 and above. Okay, now we spoke about two things, or I said that I would speak about two things: environment and the law of conservation. It's the law of conservation of energy, to be exact. Let's talk about the environment for a second. If I were to spend enough time with you, our heartbeats would synchronize. When you sleep with somebody in the same bed, your breathing patterns synchronize. There's a synchronization going on in order to match the environment that you're in to go back into homeostasis. That's what everything in nature is trying to do. It's trying to find balance. It's trying to find a level of homeostasis and be comfortable. That's a level of comfortability. What happens when women spend enough time together? And is the menstrual cycle contagious? You can't give a woman your period, right? So there's something else going on. There's something else going on. You're tuning in to the same bioresonant environment. You're tuning into the same resonance and having the same expression simultaneously. Meaning it's not going from person A to person B. It's person A and person B are tuning into the same thing. Now, that doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it happens the majority of the time. That's why the majority of women, you'll see that happen, but not every single one, because there's other factors at play as well. But the common theme over here with the environment is that the environment that you're in is the environment that you will synchronize with. That means if you put yourself in a counterproductive environment, like standing next to a 5G tower, that has counterproductive frequencies. Again, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. When you have frequencies that are not in alignment with the human body and the laws of creation, you create things like cancer. But when you have productive frequencies, because electromagnetic fields are not bad, they're natural, it's when you create negative forms and counterproductive forms of them that you actually create problems. You're already emanating an electromagnetic field 24/7. It's who you are. It's what creation is. The question is it productive or counterproductive? Is it balanced or imbalanced? Is it coherent or distorted? That's the main difference when it comes to energy. So put yourself in an environment that is productive or coherent or balanced. Your body will tune into that. Put yourself in an environment that's counterproductive or distorted or messed up one way or another. Not 100% of the time, but your body will, in many cases, go and synchronize with that. So we need to find a way to recreate while still living in the world that we live in, because you can't change it overnight. We have to recreate the environment that we're sitting in order to synchronize with something productive as opposed to something counterproductive. And that's where the law of conservation comes in. Does anybody know what the law of conservation of energy states? Anybody? No? Beautiful. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. This was the first law of science that we all learned as kids, and we forgot about it because we didn't understand the importance of what that actually means. So let me tell you what that means. If you take this marker, you see it, it's a marker. It has a form, and if I cover it in gasoline and light it on fire, eventually it's going to disappear, correct? Now this marker is made of certain things. It's made of elements on the periodic table. The fact that they're manipulated is a whole different point, but it's made of the same elements of the periodic table as everything else in the universe. It's just a manipulated form of it. And when I burn it, what happens? Those elements decompose. It turns into smoke, it turns into heat, it turns into all these things, and it goes up into the atmosphere and it recycles, and that same energy continues moving forward and will be an energetic resource for something else. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only change form. The form has a beginning and end. The energy behind that form does not. That's proof that reincarnation exists. For anybody that thinks it's a theory that's wild, it's not. We know it, we see it, I just proved it to you. We just can't understand it because people don't always remember things like that, and when they do, they call them crazy. But scientifically, the basic law of science tells us energy cannot be created or destroyed, and we are made up of energy. Now, if energy cannot be created or destroyed, what does that really look like? And it goes back to something that was proven in 2012. Even before that, but something that was more proven the mainstream somewhat in 2012. Who's seen the movie Thrive? There's a movie called Thrive by a good friend of mine, Foster Gamble. And he proved that basically the basic electromagnetic field that's a common theme throughout all of creation looks like this. What is this called for anybody who knows?
Toroidal field.
It's called a toroidal field. It's like, oh, I'm not wearing the necklace. Somebody gave me a new necklace yesterday. I was supposed to wear the the medallion. So for anybody that's wearing a medallion, that's what it represents. When you take the medallion and put it on its side, it looks like this. A toroidal field is an electromagnetic field where energy does not begin or end. There's no birth or destruction or death to it. There's no beginning or end. It's energy moving in all directions simultaneously. That means that it's eternal, because energy is eternal. The base electromagnetic field of life is that. They call it a toroidal field. If there was a way to personify this idea, not in a religious way whatsoever, but the concept, the idea, the word that we call God, whatever you want to call that thing, however you want to define that thing, even though you can't, because it's limitless. You can't define or know something that has no beginning or end. But if you had to personify it and explain it one way or another, this is what it would look like energetically. It's eternal. It has no beginning, it has no end. It's perfect, it's balanced, and it's harmonious. This is our birthright. Now guess what? The toroidal field It's how your body works, it's how your heart works, it's how trees work, it's the electromagnetic field of trees, to apples, to carrots, all the way to planet Earth as a whole. This is the field of energy around planet Earth as a whole, all the way to the human body. From the micro to the macro and beyond on both sides. It's this electromagnetic field that we have to recreate, because it's this electromagnetic field that's our birthright that we were born with. That's our level of health that we shouldn't need to find a way to gain. It's something that we're born with. So the question is, how do we recreate this field in a world that's so artificial, like the world that we live in right now, because everything that we're seeing in the world right now distorts this. We need to find a way to bring this back. Because what does this tell us? The environment that you're in is the environment that you synchronize with. And if we can recreate this toroidal field in a conscious way around the world, your body will tune in and synchronize with that environment. And it will bring yourself back into coherence and balance with what you're truly meant to live like, which is a healthy lifestyle, which is a balanced lifestyle. Cancer is not normal. Heart disease is not normal. Autism is not normal. None of those things are normal. If they were normal, we would see them in nature. We don't. As a matter of fact, it's funny. The medical system tells us that we're the most advanced that we've ever been. And yet, so advanced, we're the only ones that get the flu every single year on a clock. And we're the only ones that have a shot for it. How the hell does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. What do you mean flu season? So where are the animals? Why aren't they getting their yearly flus? Why aren't they getting their annual flus? Where is it happening over there? It should happen over there more than it happens to us. If we have shots and they don't, if the shots work, there's something going on here. We're being told something that's not exactly what reality is, and we're believing something that we're not even seeing. It's not matching what we're being told. So we need to recreate this toroidal field. In short, that's one of the main ways that this system works. Now let's talk about technology for a second. Technology can be used in a negative way, but technology can be used in a positive way. Artificial intelligence can be used in great ways. Artificial intelligence can be used to create the demise of humanity and the destruction of humanity and destroy us once and for all. It's not about the technology, it's about the operator behind the technology and what we choose to do with it. So you can create networks and telephones and mobile phones and computers and all of that. That doesn't create negative forms of radiation. The question is, are you creating the technology with the consciousness, with the awareness of the laws of creation, with the awareness of the Schumann resonance, which we'll speak about, with the awareness of the Fibonacci sequence, which we'll speak about, with the awareness of the power of color and color therapy, with the awareness of creating certain charges in an environment that you can synchronize with that are more beneficial for yourselves as a whole. Technology is not a bad thing. It's us collectively in the way that we've been creating it due to our lack of awareness of these things, that we've created it with a blindfold on. We've created it in a way that has no connection whatsoever to the health of humanity and to the laws of creation. This technology is a technology that uses the same components that other people weaponized. Only it used those components with the laws of creation in mind, with the proper consciousness in mind. And I'm going to explain that to you guys so you can see it very, very directly, and then we'll have questions and answers and go into whatever angles and directions you guys want to go. But the reason I'm so passionate about this, the reason why I travel the world and do this, is because I feel, I would even say that I know, that we can change the world in this lifetime. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 1 year. But if enough of us change the way that we do things, if enough of us understand this, there's something really unique that will happen. And it's called the 100th monkey effect. 100th monkey effect is island number 1 and island number 2. And there are monkeys here and there are monkeys here. And they've never met each other because they don't have boats and they don't know each other. This is on one side of the world and this is on the other side of the world. And one monkey starts doing something here. And then the other monkey follows. But that makes sense because it saw this monkey. And comes a point where the whole island is doing the same thing. And then something weird happens. This whole island starts doing the same thing as well, and they've never seen each other. How does that work? Because we are synchronizing with the same bioresonant field. Works in the same way that periods work with women, only with consciousness. You know those times where you have an idea and you don't know where it came from? And other spiritual people will say it came from the ether. Well, it came from the place that's infinite, that we're all a part of, that we're all interacting with, that transcend lifetimes, that has no beginning and no end. And if just one person goes and figures something out, it makes it possible for the next person to do the same. Up until recently within the past few decades, it was impossible to run a mile faster than 5 minutes. I think it was 5 or 4, whatever it was. And one person broke it. And the next year, 20,000 people did the same. And it's because when one person does something, we've accessed a doorway that now gives a completely new path to all of humanity, because in that way we all are one. That's why we're synchronizing with the same things. Right now, we're synchronizing with war around the world. But if we start choosing the opposite, if we start putting different energy into that field, it's still infinite. It has the potential for war just like it has the potential for peace. The question is, what do we choose in this time? When it comes back to the technology, the more of us who understand this, the easier it will be for people to just make it make sense in common sense terms. It's like, yeah, of course. Because it makes sense. Because it's a part of our consciousness. For most right now, when I explain what I'm going to explain, I'll do my best to make it as easy to understand. But if anybody but me, like the people who explained it to me, came and explained it to you guys in this room, you would have no idea what's going on. Because I had no idea what was going on for like 10 months in terms of how to actually explain it. But there's a way to bring things down to a ground level. There's a way to explain those things, and that's what we're going to do right now. But again, my goal is to cause this, and I can't do that by myself. I can only do that with help. That's why I'm traveling. That's why I'm doing all of this. That's why I'm on a plane every day, sometimes twice a day, because of this. So, where did I put it there? It's like hiding. Okay. So, how does this technology actually work? And here's the fun part. Now it's going to get really cool. It's going to make you guys think, because you have to understand how reality basically works, to understand the implications of what's going on. If you look at the technology from the side, it would look like this. This is what I call a black box, just making it simple. And this is what we call a screen or a monitor. Now again, when I first looked at this thing, I thought somebody was messing with me. Like there's no way. That's why I didn't want to do it. Because I'm like, I have too much to lose here. I already left the family business and all that. I'm not doing this. People are going to look at me like I'm crazy. When I understood the science, it didn't just make sense to me. It's an objective truth. But to get to that point, I had to understand this. Who knows what the speed of light is? By numbers.
186,000 miles per second.
186,000 miles per second. That's very, very fast. That's about 7 times around this planet every single second. It's very, very fast. What does this actually mean? Well, rationale. If the speed of light travels at 186,000 miles per second, and I'm standing over here with a light bulb, and you're standing 186,000 miles away from me, and I turn this light bulb on, how long will it take for you to see the light bulb turn on?
Seconds.
1 second. And if you were standing 10 times that distance, it would take you 10 seconds to see the light bulb turn on. Even though it happened in my present moment, you see it 10 seconds later, correct? Make sense so far? Okay. Next step. The closest star to So our planet, with the exception of the sun, is 4 light years away. To define a light year, it's the distance light travels at this speed. If you take the amount of seconds, multiply it by this number per year, you're going to get about 159 trillion miles. That's what 1 light year away means. The distance that light travels and what we experience is 1 year. So if a star is 4 light years away, and tonight we go outside and we see that star explode, how long ago did it happen? 4 years ago. That means that when you're looking into the sky, you're looking into the past. And that also means that if you went, what year are we in, 2024? If you went 23 light years away from planet Earth right now and took a telescope and looked at Earth, what event would you see? 9/11. Because that light is there. The experience of that light is there. That's why when people say everything is here and now, they really mean it. Everything is happening simultaneously. The only thing that creates the illusion of past, present, and future is your proximity to where the light of that experience is. But now there's a problem. Scientists say, the ones that I don't agree with, scientists say that everything you say, Jason, you're right on what you said, but you can't travel faster than the speed of light. Of course you can. I like this guy. Of course you can. How do we know that? There's something called quantum entanglement. Now let's explain what that means in a very simple way. What's your name? Darren? Okay. Darren has white blood cells in his body. And if I were to bring something foreign to his body, those white blood cells would activate in order to fight that foreign thing. That's how your body works. Say it again?
Like his kidney transplant.
Like his kidney transplant. Now your white blood cells are being activated. Now, we know that happens in the body. But if I were to take a sample of your white blood cells and put it over there, and do the same thing and bring a foreign agent to the body that threatens your body, that activates your white blood cells, you would see the same activation happen in the petri dish over there. Fine, we know that there's a connection, we don't really understand how it works, but it's in the same room. But here's the interesting part. If I take that same petri dish and put it 100 trillion miles away, 100 trillion light years away, you would assume that when I do what I do to Darren, that petri dish would need to take 100 trillion years to respond, because if there's nothing faster than the speed of light, it can only respond in that time. But it doesn't. It happens instantaneously. And what that means is that there's something that we don't understand that's going on here. That's what the word quantum is. We have no clue what's going on. It's always happening simultaneously, instantaneously, eternally, with no beginning and no end. And nobody has a clue of what's going on. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because this is a spectrum of frequency from 0 to infinity. It never actually ends, which really means it's a loop. But we'll draw it in a linear form to be able to understand. 0 to infinity. From here to here is what you experience reality. So we'll call this 3D. Some people call this 5D. We'll call this physical. Some people call this spiritual. Or non-physical, whatever you want to call it. Scientifically, we call this side vector. We call this side scalar. That's what this technology is. It's using scalar energy, which is on this side of the spectrum, to interact with the body and how it does what it does. Now, when it comes to holistic health, up until now, This is where, you know, your body exists and all that. This is a 3D world that we can see, that we can feel and all that. Holistic health generally only takes from here to here. It's better than pharmaceutical health because they probably take from here to here. So we have made a stride in the right direction. But it's not enough. Because you don't just exist from 0 to the speed of light. Because the law of conservation tells us energy cannot be created or destroyed, which means that there is something eternal about you. And if there's something eternal about you, you exist on this side as well. Which means that if we truly want to experience health, we need to balance both sides of the equation, not just one. The black box balances this side of the equation. The screen balances this side of the equation using light within the spectrum. And I'll break it down to make it really simple. What the black box is really called is an engine field generator. I just call it a black box because that's what it looks like and it's easy to understand. What's an engine field generator? It's a generator. It's an engine that generates fields. What type of fields? Electromagnetic fields. Now, we said that our goal is to recreate the toroidal field so we can synchronize with that environment, correct? Make sense so far? How do we do that with electromagnetic fields? And the science, simply put, without getting into complexities, is you take two identical, they're not so identical, but make believe they are. You take two identical electromagnetic fields, you align them precisely, and their merging point will produce a toroidal field, what some people call 0-point energy, what some people call a null zone, and so on and so forth. You're taking two identical electromagnetic fields to create what we're trying to create on this side of the equation, energetically speaking, on the intangible side, that's still a part of you, a toroidal field. But there's a problem with this. It can be unstable because there's only 2 points. So what happens if you add more points? The black boxes that you're seeing behind every monitor is identical to the one next to it. It's using technology that we know in a very specific way to generate identical electromagnetic fields around this room, and they're aligned precisely. So when they actually came to install this technology, they didn't just put it on a shelf. There were lasers, there was calibration. It took a long time to do something like that because you need to calibrate it perfectly. And you need to recalibrate it over and over again every few months to make sure that it's not moving because vibrations can move something like that. But so long as you have precise alignment across the room, which is what we have over here, in the center point of this room, we have this, a stable toroidal field with 24 points that keep it stable. And according to measurements, and I think it's bigger than this, but based on what was actually seen and measured, it's very hard to measure something like that. 2.2 miles in every direction does this electromagnetic field go. Now, when I say every direction, we're talking about spherical shapes here, because that's how the intangible universe works. Think about it logically. If there's no direction and everything goes in all directions in the intangible, non-physical universe, the shape that you're left with is a sphere. If it goes here, 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 and everywhere in between, you are left with a sphere. That's why the spherical shape is very important and a staple of cosmology. There's a mysticism to that, spiritually speaking, but we're not going to get into that. So, again, over here, we're creating a toroidal field that goes in every direction 2.2 miles. Now, some may look at this and say, all right, well, if that's true, then why do I have to be in the room? The reason why you have to be in the room, not even in that room, the reason why you have to be in the room is because that toroidal field, it's great, it balances this side, you still have a physical body to deal with. That physical body doesn't operate over here. That's why it's physical. It operates over here, within the vector frequencies, in the physical world, in the 3D world, in the Hertzian world. That's what they call it scientifically. Hertz. Everybody's heard those units. And then when you go beyond this, they call it non-Hertzian. It's the same thing. It's just using different terminology to get to the same point. This is non-physical, this is physical. This is your body. So how do we use certain components in the physical world from 0 to the speed of light to impact the physical body in a positive way? We dealt with this side, now how do we go to this side? That's where the screen comes in. The screen, this is another reason I didn't want to do it when I first started. Because I looked at it, and I'm like, what the hell is that? It's an ACES screen with lights and colors. There's no way somebody's messing with me. I really thought somebody was messing with me. And then I sat down with the inventor, and I said, listen, I need you to, and I wasn't very nice either, she knows. I'm like, it kind of looks like bullshit, I'm not going to lie. Like, I need you to tell me what's going on. And she sat down with me for a long time, and she really explained it. And the problem was she had one level of terminology that she was speaking at, and I wasn't there. So I had to learn certain things and then translate it into English, like what this actually means. So what you guys are about to hear is the translation of that world into English. And it's still hard to understand to an extent, but if you pay attention, maybe even write this down, I think it will make more sense to you. So, what are you looking at when you look at the screen? Everybody here probably heard of what's called the Schumann resonance.
Yeah.
Who knows the number of the Schumann resonance? 7.83. Hertz. Right? Hertz. It's within the Hertzian spectrum. It's here.
Very low.
Now, a little fun fact. 7.83. What do you get when you add that up?
9.
Before the 9.
Number 9, yes, so they all went up in 9.
18.
Yeah, 18.
Correct?
And a 1 and
If
a
you
9
take-
is a 9.
You could take 7 and 83 and get to the 9. You could take this, which is this and this, which is 15, and get to 18. You could do 3 plus 8 is 11, plus 7 is 18. Now when you get to 18, and you add those up, which is the 1 and 8, you're eventually going to get to the 9. No matter how you mix these numbers up, you'll always eventually get to 9. But before you get to 9, you're going to get to the division before it, which is 18. 18 is not a random number. So let's write that down for a second. Let's go back before I continue over here, because I could just tell you that the Schumann resonance is being transmitted here, but I want you to understand what the Schumann resonance actually is and the implication of it. There are very few languages that are left in our world today that were discovered, not created. There are then other languages that were created arbitrarily. Sanskrit, Aramaic, Hebrew, which uses the Aramaic alphabet. Those were not created languages. They were discovered languages. There was a study done. I'm sure you guys can look this up. I forgot the name of it. There was a study done. When you say the first letter, let's say, of what we now call the Hebrew alphabet. But before it was the Hebrew alphabet, it was Aramaic. This is not connected to religion whatsoever, but simply an objective alphabet. When you say Aleph, you take that sound and you graph it on an actual graph, you will see that it looks like an Aleph. And when you say Bet, the second letter, and you graph the frequencies of that sound onto whatever that graph is that they used in that test, and you put it into 3D, you add the Z-axis to the X and the Y, you'll see that it looks like that letter, the Bet, and so on and so forth. Now when you say A, that's not what happens. It's just a random, arbitrary shape. When you say B, that's not what happens. That's what I mean by discovered versus created. One is based on the laws of creation, and one is based on nothing. Most of our languages today are not based on much. They're a far deviation away from the laws of creation. The reason why the discovered languages are so important is because you can use those to create. Because you're literally using frequency in a consciously manipulated way to cause things to happen or not to happen. That's where abracadabra comes from. It's an Aramaic saying. It's livra, like dibur. Dibur is to speak in Hebrew, but it goes back to Aramaic. So why am I telling you this? Because this number, if you go to the word life in Hebrew, it looks like this. It's made of 2 letters. This letter is called chet. Gematria is not something that applies to English. I know people like to do that, but it's not real. Gematria is based off of an alphanumeric code on discovered languages, not created ones. This is 8. This is 10. Chai means life. And it equals 18. They knew this thousands of years ago. This word, with its alphanumeric code, which is 18, was based off of the Schumann resonance. It's not a coincidence that the heartbeat of Earth, basically. It's not a coincidence that the heartbeat of Earth is 18. And it's not a coincidence that the words that mean life in those languages is 18. There's a deep connection over there. The point is 18 represents the resonance of life. The Schumann resonance represents the resonance of life. And it's that resonance that's extremely important to bring back into our lives, to bring us back into balance. But now,
apparently they say that it's higher now.
it can fluctuate all the time.
Okay.
And that's when different frequencies, and again, frequencies are different levels of consciousness as well, which we could speak to because that goes to geometry, which we can get to at the end of this because it's fascinating and there are cool tricks that you can do with that as well to unlock different levels of awareness using geometry. You can actually break bank encryptions that by Google will take you 300 trillion years to break their encryptions on a supercomputer in a matter of about 50 milliseconds. I've seen it done. Robert Edward Grant, a good friend of mine, he created a calculator that does it, that breaks it in 50 milliseconds instead of what would usually take 300 trillion years. They count on that time of decryption for you to not be able to break bank accounts. It all comes back to geometry, which was discovered, not created, which is also what those languages are based on. But we'll get to that later. The second point over here, in addition to transmitting that resonance within the Hertzian spectrum from 0 to the speed of light to impact the body in a positive way, it's called the Fibonacci sequence. I hope I'm spelling this right. Fibonacci sequence. You know, I don't know this. On Microsoft Word, I get the red line that tells me I spelled it wrong. Not over here. So with the Fibonacci sequence, does anybody know what that is? Can you explain it?
Yeah, you just start with 1 and you add the last 2.
But what is it? Where do we see it?
On the nature in the
So it's naturally occurring.
Yeah.
The Fibonacci sequence is a code. It's a sequence of numbers or ratios that we see naturally occurring in nature. It wasn't manipulated, it wasn't created, it was discovered. And what's your name?
Edwin.
Edwin? Okay, so what Edwin was saying was there's actual numerology to it. And it goes like this, and I'll explain what this is in a second. Now, it looks like a weird strand of numbers, but what's really going on here is very simple. You take the last 2, you add them up, and you get to the next one. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 5, 5, 3, 8, 5, 8, 13, 8, 13, 21, 13, 21, 44, and it keeps going. To be able, before we get to the technology, if we are able to bring this sequence, these codes of creation, that's really what they are, back into our lives, we bring back balance. We bring back more life. If you were to stare at that screen, or any screen, but we'll take that one for long enough, you would eventually see it change directions. And that's not random. If it were to reset its program, it would change directions and go down for 1 second, and up for 1 second, and down for 2, and up for 3, and down for 5, and up for 8, and down for 13, up for 21, down for 44, and it keeps going. I don't know when the program ends on these new programs. But the idea is to transmit the Fibonacci sequence and what we call the codes of creation in a conscious way using the program that you're seeing. So that sequence is encoded into the transmission that you're seeing. But we take it a step further. What did we say about the environment? You synchronize with the environment that you're in. So if you're in an environment of lower electrical millivoltage, or lower voltage in general, you'll experience a lower charge that you're synchronizing with. But imagine we can create the optimal charge for your cells to regenerate, which is technically -70 to -90 millivolts. Why it's negative, I have no idea, but that's the number. To -90 millivolts. This is your optimal range to regenerate. -50 and above, it's great. -70 to -90 is where you start regenerating new cells. It's where your cells start repairing. It's where your DNA starts repairing. So if there was a way to create this charge in this room and hold that charge, your body would synchronize with it over time if you spend enough time in it. Make sense so far? The third point is called photonic collision. Forget about that word. We're going to call it the collision of light. Collision of light. Now, light, let's think, when I use the word photon, for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it's like a quantum of light. Think about it as like a particle of light if you had to visualize it. Now, light is coming off that screen, light is coming off that. So light's coming off everywhere. That's what reality is, it's light. It's photons of light. Or photons, if you really want to get technical. Now imagine, again, to visualize, to make it easier to understand, you take those photons, and you have photons coming from there, and photons coming from there, and you merge them. When they hit in the center of the room, those photons create an implosion, which creates a charge. From -7 to -90 millivolts. That's the environment that you're sitting in right now. It's charged at -70 to -90 millivolt charge. And your body will synchronize with that over time. So again, the third part of what the screens are doing within this spectrum, on this side of the equation, is creating an optimal charge for your body to synchronize with. And the last portion is just color. Now I say just color, it's really it's the craziest thing ever. Let's talk about it for a second. Do you guys know, who knows what color actually is? You could just yell it out if you like.
Frequency?
Keep going. Everything is frequency.
Light.
Yeah, light. How's it measured? The length of the wave. It's measured in what we call nanometers. So, if you were to Google it, you would see 400 to 700 nanometers. But really, it's 360 to 720. Also, the amount of degrees in a sphere. It goes back to the sphere and the point of the sphere. And again, there's a mysticism to that we don't need to get to right now. But we'll say 360. Well, technically, it goes in reverse. So 720 to 360. You have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The difference, nanometers. The difference between red and blue is a wavelength. For anybody who's been scuba diving here, which color disappears first? Red. If you were to go deep enough, the first color that becomes no color is red. It's because of its wavelength. The only difference between red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet is the wavelength and therefore the frequency that it operates at, because you can convert nanometers to hertz. And then you can say a song operates in hertz because that's how you can hear things. The nanometers is how you can see things. And if we were to convert 720 nanometers to whatever hertz that would be, you would see what range of music is red. Why is that relevant? Have you ever seen those diagrams of somebody meditating like this with the 7 chakras? Most people call it a bunch of BS and nonsense. Well, what it really is this. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Is it a coincidence that it's in the same order of that spectrum? The chakras. What did they know thousands of years ago that we can't get our heads around today? We lack the awareness that I'm about to share so much that we think that Eastern medicine and Western medicine negate each other, and they don't. They're expressing the same exact thing in two different ways. Now, Eastern medicine understands that. Western medicine, for the most part, doesn't. So, the endocrine system, the pulmonary system, the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, all these different systems in the body, they operate at specific optimal frequencies. When the heart is working well, there's an optimal frequency that the heart works on. When the digestive system is working well, there's an optimal frequency that that works on. When blood flow in the body is working well, there's an optimal frequency that's correlated with that. And that's what these are. So all they were really saying thousands of years ago with this map is that yellow, which aligns with your digestive system, it's your digestive system's optimal frequency. What we perceive as the color yellow is what your digestive system needs to operate in its optimal functionality. What we perceive as the color green is the optimal frequency of your heart and your lungs. And it's no coincidence that all the yellow foods that are real whole foods are good for your digestive system. Like bananas and lemon in your water, and mangoes and pineapples. And it's no coincidence that red foods, which correlate to the optimal frequency of your blood flow in your body, decrease inflammation, like cherries. And strawberries, and anything red, and raspberries, and cranberries, and all those things. Because there's an order to how things work. The reason why that's relevant is because now we're starting to use color as medicine. Even in the world that kills people, they still do it. They started doing it. It was becoming so obvious that they couldn't not do it. Because there comes a point where you can only push to a certain barrier of saying no. Everything will eventually come out. The question is when. And light therapy is starting to come out right now. So red light therapy, it's all over the internet. Everybody's using it. There are trials. Blue light therapy, they're showing that it's helping with arthritis. There's many different frequencies now that are being used to heal the body, which really means that light has the ability to heal the body. How could that be? Because the prime function of your DNA is the storage of photons. And when you provide the proper coherent light to the body, it will absorb that and then express coherency. And if you provide distorted light to the body, it will absorb that and express distortion, and so on and so forth. What you're seeing on these screens is using light within the spectrum, specifically within this spectrum, because your body is a map of color, basically. It's one big ball of color of different optimal frequencies. It's using different colors on that spectrum. You see a full rainbow around you right now in a very specific way in order to bring that light into coherence with your body and to bring your body into coherence with the light that it actually needs. Everything is light. The question is it coherent or distorted? And when you take the Schumann resonance, the Fibonacci sequence, collision of light or photonic collision, everything I just explained with color, that's the main understanding of how the screens work. And that's how you balance this side of the equation. When you balance both, you then actually have holistic health. So we're going to summarize real quick. You have two portions that the technology has, two actual components to it. You have the black box, which we explained, and you have the screen. Just to really solidify this and make it easy to understand. The black box takes care of this side of the equation by creating a toroidal field that your body synchronizes with in a balanced environment. That's your check on that side of the screen. Through the Schumann resonance, the Fibonacci sequence, photonic collision, and color therapy is how we use light within the spectrum to check that side of the box off. And again, I'm repeating myself on purpose so you guys really get this through. When you balance both sides, you experience holistic health, not just with an H. Or the W. That's what I think we're missing. We're missing the W. And we've been missing it for a very long time. So that, in short but somewhat long, is how the EE system works. And there's a lot of lessons involved with understanding what I just said, all the way from how reality works and what that really means for your life as a whole. So now we can move into questions. Yep.
I have a question. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
So have you created a video of that,
Yeah.
the whole talk?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel.
What is it called?
The real science behind the EE system.
Because that's
It's about 42 minutes.
the real science behind.
Yep, the real science behind the EE system, and it's been seen many times.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions anywhere, and we can deviate to wherever you guys want to go. It can be about the technology, it can be about life, it can be about whatever you want. Yes?
I saw your recent interview on YouTube with Carrie Madej.
Yeah, with the plane crash.
How she recovered so quickly using this
Oh, yeah.
knowledge from a
Yeah.
plane crash. So that was what the talk was about. Right at the end, she said, I believe we can heal DNA damage, I think was the words. So my question to you, was she talking about damaged DNA generally? So your reference to DNA was general. Or was she talking about a specific thing that we've recently become aware of that's affecting people's DNA?
Generally.
So generally.
Yeah.
And so she was saying this technology can repair damaged DNA generally. Is that right?
This technology has been seen to help in those ways,
Okay.
but it is important to recognize the following. I think we've been lied to for a very long time, and we've been taught that there is such thing as 100%, and that's not true. The only reason why we think that to an extent, or we've been taught to think that way, is because I don't know how it works in Australia, but in the US, every single channel is sponsored by Big Pharma. And same here. And there's legalities behind how and what you can say. That really is one big lie. So, for example, you're allowed to say it's been proven scientifically to X, Y, and Z. And that doesn't actually mean that it's done that more than 45% of the time. That's crazy. Organic food, to a certain extent in the US, you can say it's organic if it's like 50% meeting certain requirements. It's nonsense. It's a play on words to figure certain things out. And I only know that because I was going to create, and I'm actually in the process of creating a supplement line of certain aspects of really optimizing your health. And going through all the hoops of learning what each label actually means, it really pissed me off. Because I saw how I had the ability, if I wanted to lie to everybody. Everybody. If I chose to, I could lie to everybody and be technical on certain labels, which means there are a lot of people doing that. A lot. So I bring that up because a lot of people ask, well, how long will it take for me to overcome X? And there's no real answer to that. Just like there's no real answer with the pills either. They create an illusion of a real answer, but that's not true. The truth is, we're all unique individuals. The truth is, we all have a different priority system of what we're going to put first and second and third in our process of healing. There are a lot of people that go for one reason. For example, I have a friend, he's dealing with a bunch of stuff, and he's like 28. A lot of not great things in his life. And he went for a few reasons, and he came out with his eyesight reversing and being able to see a lot better. So it's interesting how the body chooses, okay, we're going to do this first and this second, and how that all works. And I don't have an answer for that. Nobody does. What I can tell you is because we're all unique, when it comes to, and this is to everybody, because we're all unique, when it comes to how you're going to deal with something or overcome something, you really have to figure it out just like you would with every other technology or modality out there. And there are bases that we use, like 20-hour bases based on the severity of what you're experiencing with certain tests before and after. But it's a unique case-by-case basis. Now, at the same time, if I were to say that to a group of doctors, they would leave the room. So what I did was I created something called the Conditions Improvement Form. And the Conditions Improvement Form is a survey that I encourage and I ask everybody that comes to the center to fill out, whether it's for you or your loved one that comes in or whatever it is. That basically takes the equivalent of testimonials from people and analyzes it in a way that we can convey the data in the same way that a scientific experiment would have done so. So for example, it would ask you, what's your name, how old are you, what's your gender, there's only two, what's your gender? What's your gender, where do you live? I don't remember all the questions, but the point, what are you dealing with? What ailment, what severity, how chronic is it? What system, what size are you going to? How long did you go in the system for, and how long did it take you to experience X benefit from 1 to 10? Now let's say that 1,000 women with stage 4 breast cancer between ages 35 and 55 filled that out. Next time a woman that fits into that demographic says, hey, how long will it take me to overcome this ailment? We can still say, can't tell you for sure, but based on the surveys and the data that we're seeing, on 1,000 surveys that were sent in, we see that I'm just making this up. We see that 73% of women aged 35 to 55 with stage 4 breast cancer that were in a 24-unit system for 25 hours in 2 separate intervals at a time experienced 7 out of 10 improvement, or whatever that is. And the reason why that's important is because not only will it help people come down to again, certain statistics across the board, but doctors, scientists, they don't care about surveys. They want something that they can see. And if I can show them, and this is how we bring it to the next level. If I can show them, hey, you can say what you want and call this crazy, but I have 10,000 people that put in a survey and this is what the results are. So you can go argue with them, but this is decentralized and this is what everybody's saying. Then they're no longer going to come in and say, what is this nonsense? But they're going to try and figure out, how does this actually work and why does this work? And that's how we bring it to the next level of what's really going on. That's what the Conditions Improvement Form is all about. It's to quantify data in a way that the normal system does, but in a completely different way. Meaning, it's not funded by a corrupt, or it's not funded by anybody. There's no funding. It's just people that have no interest in this big picture. Like, they're not getting paid, they're not being incentivized. They're just doing it because they want to do it. And then we have all these different things that we bring together, and you get a clear picture of what's going on. But we can only do that if people really share that. So for anybody that is interested in that, that's on unifiedhealing.com on our website. On the testimonial section, there's a Conditions Improvement Form. And if you fill that in beyond just filling out a testimonial, that's what's going to help me bring it to the level that it needs to be brought. Yeah.
2 questions.
Yep.
The pendants and the bracelets, how do they work? And also, how's your India facility going? That you put in?
Indians are very interesting people to deal with. I'll tell you that.
Are they going?
It's going, but it's tough. It was tough in the beginning. I'll explain that secondary.
Yeah.
Let's first go to the necklaces and the bracelets. So this whole thing, it does operate on both sides with much less intensity and less complexity. So obviously you're not walking around with a screen on your neck, but you are walking around with color. So let's say you have tiger's eye. Tiger's eye is more of a brown, red grounding stone. That's the energy that it brings to the table. Let's say you're walking around with onyx. Onyx will bring more, it will absorb a lot of energies. And for example, somebody like me, if I wear a black stone, if it's obsidian or onyx or whatever it may be, on my neck, for me, because of my job, if I don't clean it often, there have been situations twice in my life where I was standing in front of an audience and it popped. It just broke. I didn't fall or nothing. It just broke. There was somebody that probably really hated me in the audience. But that's how those stones work. So on the color side of it, the color can't change, but the color shows you the frequency of the stone and the components and characteristics of that stone as well. Depends what you're looking for. So there's the whole spectrum. You can also, I mean, I can tell you a few off the top of my head just to give you some pointers, because there's one that you're not going to be able to find. Or one idea that you're not going to be able to look for very easily. Look at the whole chart of what's for what, and you'll see it follow that whole graph that I spoke about from red all the way to violet and what they actually correlate with. But there's clear quartz. Clear quartz is like clear stone. And that clear stone, you usually see it with like a point on the bottom. That's usually how the necklaces are built, for the most part. Clear quartz is an amplifier stone. It's like it amplifies anything that it's next to. So if you're wearing a blue stone, like lapis lazuli, for example, with a clear quartz, you will amplify the power of the blue stone. At the same time, if you're just wearing clear quartz and you're experiencing something like sadness, it can bring you low. And if you're experiencing something like joy, it can bring you higher. And I know it sounds crazy because it's like a stone. That's how they work. You can measure these things. You can take pictures of these stones with Kirlian photography and see that just like the human body has light, so do these stones. So does everything, only to a different degree. Believe it or not, even a Dorito has light. Just a whole lot less than something that's not a Dorito manipulated in that way. Because there's nothing that's not connected to source. Everything's connected to source. The question is, how diluted are you away from that source? So for example, an apple will have a lot more light in it than a steak that you cook. Broccoli that's raw will have a lot more light in it than broccoli that's cooked. Literally, you're taking the light away from it. You're taking the light out of it. And when you're trying to deal with overcoming diseases, your goal should always be, how do I get closest to the light? Specifically when you're experiencing disease in the body. Because that light, which is our sun, is a toroidal field. And the closer you get to that light, the closer you come into balance with yourself. So when you're really dealing with illness, in addition to stones that you may use and all these different modalities like the E system that are a part of what I would personally do on a day-to-day, your food is extremely important. That's why your food is part of the protocol of this system when you're dealing with severe ailments. Now, with or without the system, I would always tell somebody with cancer, with heart disease, whatever it is, change your diet and change it immediately. And don't make it a diet that you change, make it a lifestyle that you move into. You can't eat dead foods and expect to live. It doesn't work that way. If you want to live, especially when you're experiencing a lack of light in the body, we can all live. We can all live eating whatever we want right now. And by the way, although I was born and raised a vegan, I don't think that's the right way for everybody. I think that there's some people, their optimal way of living right now is a carnivore diet. But I don't think that's where we started. I think that the reason why it was optimal is because of generations of how we decided to do things, and that's what our bodies know right now. But where we started could not have been there. And therefore, where we'll end will not be there either. And when you lower, where it's lower your density, but it's increasing your light, because the less dense, the more light. When you lower your density and increase your light, you will want to, again, go back to the environment and synchronizing with the environment. You're going to want things that make you feel good, that are in correlation with that are in accordance with that bring you back into homeostasis with the feeling that you're feeling spiritually. And the higher you go, the less dense you become. The foods that you're going to eat are going to be foods that you desire that are less dense as well. How do we know the density of a food? Based on the water in that food. So If you take a cucumber, it's about 97 to 98% water. If you take bread, it's about 70% water. Depends on the bread, but that's the idea. So the way that you know the like spiritual to physical ratio of a food and what it's aligned with is the amount of water to matter that it has. Water represents light, matter represents density. And it's not about good or bad. It's about where we're all at and how we want to move forward. And most importantly, when you have somebody, and I've seen it many times, there are individuals who have, let's take meat for example, they've been eating meat their whole lives. They're like, oh my God, I want to go vegan. That's very bad. You can't do something like that and expect to be healthy. Just like, again, a shock to the body, even if it's in a proper direction, is not proper because you're shocking the body. If I was a cocaine addict and suddenly I decided to stop after 10 years, my vibration of being knows cocaine in my body. And if I were to stop that overnight, I will go through withdrawal, I can die. It doesn't mean the cocaine is good. It means that the way that I tried to veer off of it was not good. Just like me as a vegan, because that's just what I know. I've never had the other side. So it's easier for my body to acclimate to something like that because I don't know anything else. But me as a vegan, if I started eating meat right now, it wouldn't end well. As a matter of fact, I tried. I couldn't go to the bathroom for 3 days. I don't have the enzymes to digest the food. Because the body it's a very, very intelligent design that it has. So again, it's all about, I don't know how we got to food, but it is it's an important topic when it comes to what we're talking about with the system of if you're dealing with, and this doesn't go for everybody, but if you are dealing with like intense, severe ailments, then that's a time to do something a little more intense. And at least for a period of time, I would say go and change the way that you're eating. Because when you're dealing with dis-ease, remember it's a dis-ease, it's a lack of flow of energy, it's a lack of flow of light. When you bring more light into the body through breath work, when you bring more light into the body through charging your cells, when you bring more light into the body through food, which is the sustenance of your body, you will be able to heal a whole lot quicker. Your food is the most important thing there is. Especially when it comes to your spiritual evolution, most people think that when it comes to spirituality, you need to do things like meditate and pray. And that's a piece of it. That's a very important part of it, but that's not your base. Your base is the very thing that you're living in. Because if that's not clear, if that's not clean, you can pray and meditate and do all the transcendental meditation you want. It will not bring you to the canopy of that tree. It will not bring you to the top of the top. Because your body is still dealing with those issues. So you have your body, your mind, your spirit, and your soul. Your spirit is the identified version of the soul. So the spirit is Jason, the soul is all those lifetimes. Your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul. If you had to draw that out, it would look like a tree. It would look like this. There would be roots. That's a weird looking tree. There would be roots, there would be a canopy, and there would be branches. And the roots would be your body. And the trunk would be your mind, and the branches would be your spirit, and the canopy would be your soul. Most people want to skip all grades and go straight here. But if your roots aren't sturdy, if your roots aren't strong, and you try and hang from this canopy, what's going to happen? The tree's going to topple. The most important thing is your sustenance of the body, because the body holds all other dimensions above it up. When you can clear that and open those doors, you get to the next level. The next level, when I say mind, by the way, is not your mind. It's the subconscious mechanism of how your body works. So your blood's flowing, your heart's beating, you don't have to think about that. You could think about breathing if you want to, but if you stop thinking about it, it's going to continue happening. That's what I mean by the mind. In the Bible, they actually have a name for it. They call it nephesh. Nephesh is the motor of the body, the thing that keeps that thing going. If you have a problem with that, you have a big, big problem, because things that you're not consciously doing. And when you pass that, you get more into the spiritual aspects of life. And all are important if you want to experience health as all. So I don't know how we got into that, but I felt it was an important thing to share.
The frequencies of fabrics too.
Yeah.
Like linen is supposed to be the best one for you.
I think if you, what did I hear?
Questions.
The frequencies of fabrics that you.
A fabric of your clothes.
Yeah.
So for, what is this called again?
Linen.
Linen. So when you take linen and wool, you negate both frequencies, it becomes 0. So if I was wearing wool on top of this right now, the energy neutralizes. Linen is one of the best, highest frequencies of fabric there is. But when it comes to, for example, people that I work with in TLS organization that I work with, there are sometimes they have to do what they do naked. And it's because of that. It's because the frequency of fabric can stop what you're trying to do sometimes. That will interfere. Say it again?
What about silk?
I don't know. I'm not a fabric expert. I just know that sometimes they have to be naked. And I found it very funny. Yeah.
I'd like to explain to everyone about TLS and if at all they have any connection to the system.
Oh, yeah.
And second question, at what part is there do we have to take into consideration the placebo effect?
Beautiful question. Let's answer that one first. The reason why I didn't believe it at first was because I had to see it in action. When I saw it in action, it started getting me to think, but I saw it in action on a human, on my hands. That still, again, I come from like the business world, so I also think very rationally. You probably see it in the way that I explain things. I like bringing things down to like, how can we actually explain it beyond the feeling and the intuition as well, which both are important, but I think we need both. It wasn't enough for me that my aunt experienced it. What got me was when my sister's dog experienced it. Now, you could say placebo, because I was trying to prove it wrong in the beginning a lot. And I could do it all I wanted on people, but you can't do that when it comes to animals. And now, there are a lot of testimonials. You'll see it on unifiedhealing.com. There are a lot of testimonials of animals that are experiencing a lot of results, and they're not doing salt baths, and they're not changing their diet, and there's something going on here. Now, I still say and recommend and encourage for us to do those extra things because animals live different lives than we do. They have less stress. It's a different life completely. But the placebo answer is the animals to me. That's what got me over it. Because if it's happening across the board to them, there's something objective going on here. Now, the first question was a much bigger topic. What do you want me to cover exactly?
Just if they have any connection to this.
They're the reason why this happened. They were the ones that put me on the plane to Vegas to go and interview. Actually, very cool. I wish I had a picture of it. But when I got to, I'll take a picture of it next time I come home. So next time I do these, I can show you guys. So basically, I'm going to make it short because I want to get to other questions as well. But in April, I think it was in April of 2022, not last year anymore, we're in 2024. April of 2022, I held an event called The Shift. It was a virtual event on Unified TV. And from there, Scott McKay, a good friend of mine, was interviewing Ty and Charlene Bollinger. He was speaking about this doctor, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, blah, blah, blah. And I had never heard of her. I didn't know about the technology, whatever it was. My family was listening to that interview. And they're like, who is this doctor that Scott's speaking about? Now, my mom and my dad are very much into alternative health as a hobby. My family's in real estate, but they love alternative health and wellness. It's just a thing that they're passionate about. So that's the home that I grew up in as well. Yeah, they're great. They're awesome. Great parents. So they started asking questions. I said, I don't know. I put them in touch with Scott. They ended up getting in touch with Sandra, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. And I was removed from it. I was doing my thing. I was focused on work, whatever it was. And then it turns out that my aunt had a 13 and a half. I kept saying 12 and a half. A 13 and a half cystic fibroid in her uterus. We said, you know what? Let's bring her to the center. Now, I wasn't a part of this decision. My family said that. They said, let's bring her to the nearest center. At the time, there were only 19 centers around the world, one being in Verona, New Jersey, which was about an hour and a half from my parents' house in Long Island, New York. They bring her to this center. It was a 24-unit system like this. They bring her to this center. 4 hours later, all her symptoms went away. She couldn't feel it. Everything was just like she was back to herself. Now, I heard, because I got a phone call of what happened, and I'm like, no, there's no way. But she's not going to lie to me. She's not an actor. I know her. She's my aunt. She's my family. So I sat there and I said, okay, she's not lying. She's not an actor. I know who she is. Placebo. Then it started happening with my sister's dog. We found a 4-centimeter tumor in his neck. 3 nights sleeping in the same system that she slept in. Gone. I'm like, oh my my God, this is crazy. Then I said, I want to talk to this inventor, Sandra. So I got on a call with her, super skeptical. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? And she was telling me all about this. And on the way, after like a 30-minute phone call, she's like, by the way, the people that you work with, TLS, which I can explain for anybody who doesn't know, they approached me back in 2011. And at first I didn't believe her, because the first rule is that you're not allowed to say something like that. Unless otherwise instructed, you're not allowed to say that I'm a part of that. Unless there's a meeting, there's certain criteria that would have to be met for that to happen. So I'm looking and I'm like, there's no way. But I had a feeling that something different was going on. So I made a call to the people that I know that work in the organization. And I said, what's going on here? And they started laughing at me. And then I understood that there was something bigger. And they said, go interview her. And I kept asking questions and they wouldn't answer. They just said, go interview her. And I said, okay, I'll do it over Zoom. I just moved to Miami at the time. I was 24, I think, 24. And I wanted to, start my life and start a new, fresh life in a new state. I'd never lived there before, all these things, make new friends. And they said, no, you're not doing it over Zoom. You have to go to Vegas and interview her in person. And I said, no. And they kept pushing, but they let go for a second. And I said, okay, great, I don't have to do it. And then it kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And I kept saying no because I just didn't want to go. I was tired. I didn't want to go. And there came a point where they're just like, listen, you're going to do this interview. They got me a plane ticket. They got me a place in the Wynn or the Encore, whatever it was in Las Vegas. The reason why I bring that up is because once I got there, I gave them a contingency. I said, if I'm going to go, my dad's coming with me. We're going to make it a trip and you guys are going to pay for it. They said, great. And I said, cool, so let's go. So we go to the Encore or the Wynn or wherever it was, and right when I get into the room, I went into the shower. My dad fell asleep. I come out of the shower, and there's this huge tray of like organic, vegan, raw, chocolate-covered strawberries. And there was a letter. I still have the letter. It's in my safe at home. And it said compliments of TLS. It was a very cool thing that I wanted to, I'll take a picture next time to show you guys what it looked like. But I kept that little, memory of that time. Now they came and they said, listen, you have to go interview her, and you have 3 tasks that you have over here. Number 1, you have to find a way to make people aware of this technology. Number 2, you have to find a way to make it more affordable. Number 3, you have to find a way to make it more accessible all around the world. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do any of that, but I'll do my best. So we sat down. I went to her house. I brought my dad with me. Went to her house. And I had an outline that was also reviewed by them. I don't know if I still have it, but there were certain instructions on those outlines, on that outline. Like, one of the instructions, I share this in events sometimes, one of the outlines were you have to use the word miracle as much as you can, but you would have to make her use it. Find a way to get her to say it without her understanding what you're doing. Looking at them, okay. Well, that's weird, but let's do it. So now I took it as like a challenge, and they gave me this task, and really, I didn't know too much about the technology. I did it out of respect to the organization that's helped me with everything that I've been doing, and they really helped me throughout my life. So I said, I'll do it for you guys, whatever you guys ask, and let me move on. I sat there, I did my job. The interview was about an hour and 5 minutes on YouTube. And there was a 20 to 30 second portion, that's it, in the interview, closer to the end. Now usually the way that videos work is people drop off. Okay, so very few people that watched it from the beginning are there by the end. At the end, I just said, if you're interested in opening up a center to make this more affordable and accessible for people around the world, instead of buying it for your own private and personal use, because a lot of rich people had it for their own personal use, because it's expensive. This is $125,000.
That's US.
US.
200 Australian.
Yeah, it's expensive. So you had people like Tony Robbins that had it. You had like the royal families of Abu Dhabi and Dubai and the United Arab Emirates as a whole. It was like very high-end people that had this thing. And they wanted to bring it to normal people, to the common person, like all of us around the world. So I said what I said for 25, 30 seconds in this interview. That's it. I did the interview on May 21st. I put it out on May 27th. I think it was a Friday. 12 p.m. Eastern time, it comes out on my YouTube channel, blows up everywhere, but like in a weird way. In 24 hours, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael and her team received 70,000 emails from people around the world that wanted to open centers. And Michael, her son, who's the CEO of the company, wanted to kill me. I was like, dude, what did you do? And I'm like, listen, I told you, I don't know what's going to happen, but if they're sending me, they have a good reason for sending me. You can be sure that everything that's going on here is a piece of that. They were the ones that set it in motion. They were the ones that inspired the whole thing. They were the ones that asked to make it happen. And now we're taking a monster that's been created in a very good way ever since. But it's to their credit, and it's to the credit of not just them that started that, but to all the center owners that stood up and heard that call to action. I wasn't the first person that interviewed her. She was on big news outlets before. She was on CNN before it was like weird. She was like on all these platforms, and again, you got to ask yourself, what's the difference? What happened on May 27, 2022 that didn't happen throughout all the other interviews? And I promise you, it wasn't me.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't because you see, I'm telling you, even if you look at the numbers on my YouTube channel, I don't have views like that. There was something that was played, so that's why I'm saying you can say that I'm part of it.
When you speak the truth.
But
It resonates a lot more.
But 100%. But you also need people to be able to hear that truth. And there were a lot of people that spoke the truth before me. There was something that happened at that point in time that changed. There was a call to action that people heard. It takes two to tango. I can speak all the truth I want. Doesn't mean people are ready. For some reason, on May 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time of 2022, people were ready. And there are still centers all around the world. And it's crazy. That's why I sat here in the beginning emotional, because I realized like how all of that sequence of events turned, it's crazy. It's crazy. We went from an operation of 4 people to like 50. And not just on our side. EES went from 3 people to 60. You know, it's an unbelievable change, an evolution that you're seeing, and it's just crazy. Yes?
What's TMS?
Oh.
The lights
Let me just turn this off. Okay. Okay, so what is that, 8?
That's fine.
You'll
get billed for hours.
Okay, so
Australia's not a small country.
I realize
Yeah, it's
that.
quite
It's
big, isn't
crazy how big this place is. I still need to see kangaroos.
Have you
You haven't seen one yet?
I heard, by the way, the kangaroos, they like go on their tail.
Yeah.
Like you can fight it. See who wins. No, I'm good. Okay, so TLS. Are we in agreement that there's negative organizations out there that do things for not great purposes? Yeah. Makes sense? Does it make sense to you that the opposite would exist as well?
Yeah.
Do you know who the opposite are? It's weird, right? Yeah, but it exists. You know, so we've acknowledged that there are negative ones. We know some of their names. Logic would tell you that the opposite exists as well, just by the law of balance of how things work. TLS is one of those organizations. So TLS stands for the light system. That's what it stands for. And it's a physical, none of what I'm speaking about, people think that I talk about like channeling extraterrestrials. That's not what I'm talking about at all. They're physical people that I can call right now on my phone. Everybody has a different person that's assigned to them. It depends. It's the whole structure of individuals. Some of those individuals you guys know. They're very well-known individuals around the world. Most of the people are not well-known. Most of the people there could be people in here and I don't know that you're a part of it. The only reason I don't know that you're a part of it is because I'm not formally a part of it myself. If I was formally a part of it, then I would know how to read that. There's a way to be able to know, and I just don't know because I haven't gotten to that point. So in 2018, I was basically approached by somebody that's a part of that organization, and that person brought me in slowly without me really understanding what was going on. 2020 was my first meeting with the organization, understanding who they were, at least the beginning of it, super overwhelming, but great. And today I'm basically, it kind of evolved, and again, without getting into too much detail, very unique series of events that evolved into me in a weird way being like the spokesperson of the organization. So that's what I do today, apart from everything that I do with Unified Healing and Unified TV and all that. Unified is not connected to TLS whatsoever. They don't make a dollar from any of this whatsoever. And they also don't need to. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization that has legit businesses around the world, one of which are the hotel business, very big, very well-known hotels and chains around the world that they run, that they use some of their headquarters as well. And instead of using that money for one big rich guy to buy, a $1 billion yacht, they just use that money to go and fund operations that need to be done. So it's not about donations. They don't ask for donations. It's all undercover. And I thankfully have the privilege of being able to work with them. So they're the ones that set me to go and make all this happen.
Amazing. Thank you.
Can you tell something about the transformation coming up?
Yes, thank you. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. So there is an event. Let's start with this. I'm still young. I'm 26. But when I was like 10, I always had a dream. And that dream was not to work in my family's real estate business. I couldn't care less about it, really. I could not care less. It just wasn't fulfilling, but I did it, and I did it for 5 years, and it didn't do anything. It wasn't satisfying or fulfilling. But what I always saw, and what I always dreamt of, and what I always felt was this like purpose on a much deeper level was, you guys know who Kevin Hart is? Comedian? Okay. So I looked at him one day. I'm like, if this guy is going from stadium to stadium to make people laugh, then I feel that I can go from stadium to stadium to help people live better lives. And it just made sense ever since I was a kid. And I always had this vision. I never knew where it came from. But I feel that part of my personal destiny is not to do things one-on-one. I've always felt that my personal destiny was to do things on a much bigger level, to inspire the people to do things one-on-one, because both are equally as important, just different people with different roles. And the biggest leap of faith that I took was recently, about 5 months ago, after sitting with, you guys know who Tony Robbins is? So I show up at his house. He's just as tall as his family. Giant. The guy's like 6'8". And I'm looking at him, and everybody has their own opinions on him. But no matter what you want to say about him, the guy did a lot of really incredible things throughout his life. Like on an objective level, just by sitting in front of him, I felt this exchange of energy, where I felt that thing that I always held myself back from doing, because I felt, the same thing that I felt before I wrote my first book. I'm too young, I don't have enough experience, I can't do it. But that mindset, that mentality will always run through your mind. No matter how old you get, I came to realize that very quickly. Of no matter how old if you're 20, 40, 50, 60, you'll always have this voice saying, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I can't do it. So you need to transcend it, and you need to do it. And if I'm already going to do it, I might as well do it now. So I did it when I started writing my first book, and my second book was better than the first, and my third was better than the second, and my fourth is better than the third. And it keeps going, and it's just this evolution process. But the biggest step that I took was really after sitting with him. He was the one that inspired me to take that leap. Because I was sitting in front of a man that I saw, it's possible. It's possible, I could feel the energy, and I felt that I fit into that. But there was a part of me that said, maybe I can't. And then I remembered what happened with my book. So because of that, I said, I'm doing it. I'm doing it, I don't care what it results in, I don't care what's going on, I'm doing it. Then after taking that leap, when I take a leap, I don't look back. That's one of the things that I've always promised myself. When you take a leap, there are scary things that pop up in your life. Always. A leap with a relationship, committing to somebody for the rest of your life, committing to a job, committing to a yes or a no based on whatever your decision is. It's scary. But if you feel that there's a way out, you're not going to commit 100%. When I left my family's business, a lot of people saw it of, oh, he could just fall back onto his parents' money. I didn't see it that way. I didn't see that there was a plan B. And that's why Unified is where it's at today. Because I didn't even see that as an option. Failure was not an option. So when I took that leap, I knew that a lot of scary things were going to come. And they did. And they did. I was hit with bills of $400,000. I didn't know what to do. I looked at it like, oh my God. I didn't know hotels and food and all that was going to be that much. I didn't know. You've never done it before. But you live and you learn. And then you trust in the process to bring you to exactly where you need to get to, whether you understand it or not. And that's what I'm going through right now. And it's a liberating process. And once I get through that, in terms of passing the event and experiencing and learning what I learned from that, there's going to be another decision of what needs to be made in order to get to the point of saying, okay, let's do it. And you keep doing that for the rest of your life, over and over again, on higher and higher and higher levels. What the event is everything that I've learned with my limited experience, because I'm not 60. Everything that I've learned throughout my few years on this planet, coupled with the illusion of age. I want to speak about that for a second. What I realized was age is not that important. It's just the amount of time that you've had physically on this planet in this lifetime. The question is, what did you do with that time? So, life, from my experience at least, is like a school. We all have common themes in our lives. Those themes are tests that we have yet to pass. So there are some people in this room right now that physiologically may be 60, but spiritually you may still be dealing with a test from when you were 25. And in that way, you're not 60 or 25. And there may be some people in this room that are 28 that have passed certain tests, and they're the equivalent of a 100-year-old. Because it's your spiritual age that matters more than your physical age. You can do more in 1 year by passing certain tests and evolve more spiritually in 1 year by passing certain tests than other people. Maybe it would take them 70 or 80 years or multiple lifetimes. Because it's not just about the amount of time that you have on this planet, it's about what you choose to do with that time. So I was dealing with the same cycle of events the same cycle of events that almost killed me. My shoulder dislocated 23 times. I got 3 shoulder surgeries. I almost had a mechanical shoulder by age 18. On my 19th birthday, I was dealing with a staph infection in my leg that I got in Thailand. I don't know why I was in Thailand by myself and how my parents let that happen, but they did. And I took an emergency flight back from 3 different planes. It was horrible. I was screaming. It was the worst experience and the best experience of my life, because that put me in the hospital after a 4-year sequence of events of pain, starting with my shoulder when I was 14, to this leading to when I was 18, over and over and over and over again. And I never paid attention to what the hell was the lesson, what's it trying to tell me. Up until then, I kept saying what some people in this room might still be saying throughout their lives. Why is this happening to me? And when I was on that bed in the hospital on my 19th birthday, I don't know what happened, but the question changed. And it was no longer, why is this happening to me, but how is this happening for me? It just, something shifted. I don't know what shifted. And I started looking at the whole sequence of events of how it was actually something trying to tell me something. It was, call it divine will, call it God, call it a higher self, call it whatever you want. There is a divine intelligence that's trying to bring you back on track. And sometimes you have to get smacked in the face in order to get back on track. And I was getting hit over and over and over again until I changed that question. And that's when it all stopped. That pain never continued. The dislocation never reoccurred. Everything went away because of the change of question. And for everybody that's listening to this right now, I'm sure that you guys have the same story in your own way. You're dealing with the same thing over and over again. And there is a deeper message over there. There's a deeper lesson over there. Something, somewhere is trying to tell you something. The goal of the transformation is to see that a whole lot clearer. Before I dive deeper into that, I have to paint something on this board because it's important for you guys to understand the difference between 2 aspects of our lives. And If you walk away from today with nothing other than this, I'll be very happy. Because this is the foundation of your life and how things happen for you and not to you. Let me just take a quick sip. There is two different dimensions of will. Willpower, what you choose to do. I'm going to be speaking about this and going a whole lot deeper at the event about this, and there's two different aspects of the event, by the way. It's in person. It's not really going to happen in person because it's kind of sold out. We're trying to increase it. It's not really working. And then there's the live stream, which is what you guys can join. But this is like the idea of what you guys would be getting there from, a little piece of it and then going a whole lot deeper. There's two different levels of will. There's free will. And there's divine will. And both of them are you. What do I mean by that? Visualize this. I know COVID here was really bad, so it was probably the same, if not worse, than it was in the US. But in the Ubers, those plastic dividers? Okay? Imagine a plastic divider. You're sitting in a car with a plastic divider that's black. You can't see through it. It's not clear. When you reincarnate, when you come into this physical experience, just like you're learning how to drive, you're learning how to live. When you learn how to drive, in some cars, you have two steering wheels. One for you, and one for the teacher. And the teacher is there to bring you back on track whenever you veer off track, to save your life and everybody else's life in the car. Now imagine you sitting in both of those seats. Only one is your free will and one is your divine will, but there's a black divider, and the free will forgets that when you reincarnate. You come here with that amnesia. You don't remember what I'm talking about. Otherwise, there is no human experience. You know it all. If you know it all, there's no need to come back and learn. So when you forget, free will thinks it's driving on its own. And divine will is really like your higher self that knows the direction of where you need to go. So now picture a street. You're driving on a road. And that road represents your destiny of what your potential is and where you can go. Your divine will knows exactly how to operate on that road. But the human experience is basically a game of trial and error and hot and cold. So you're driving without the knowingness of divine will, and you decide to make a left. You didn't know that left was bad. You didn't know that left was out of alignment with your divine will. Because the goal is always to keep your free will and your divine will aligned. That's when things go right in your life. So now your free will decides to veer off the road. But over here, there's a lot of danger. There's spikes, there's trees, there's things that you're going to hit. So your divine will kicks in and says, no, you can't do that. You've got to veer right back onto the road. Now what happens when you're veered off the road and something comes and jerks you back onto the road? Your head is going to hit that window pretty hard. The harder that jerk, maybe you'll start bleeding. Maybe you'll get a bruise, whatever it may be. But this side was what was trying to save you from where you were headed. When you forget that, you think that things are happening to you. When everything is trying to veer you into a direction of helping you in your life. So let's go beyond philosophy for a second. What does that look like in your life? Cancer, heart disease, sexual abuse, any of these things that are negative experiences, we have to remember one very clear thing. If source is one, everything comes from the same place. Oneness would never do anything to hurt itself. Source would never do anything to hurt itself. Just like you wouldn't take a hammer to break your own leg. So if source would never do anything to hurt itself, how can we make sense of the negative and horrifying things that happen to us on a daily basis? Like, on a personal level, what happened to my shoulder? What happened to my leg? And the answer came to me very clearly on that hospital bed. It was my divine will trying to get my free will to realign with itself, to come back into alignment so we can stay on the path of destiny of what we came here to do. This side is called ego. This side is called soul. Ego is not a bad thing. It only becomes a bad thing when you forget the desire of the soul. Now, what I'm about to say next is important. Remember this. When the desire of the ego aligns with the desire of the soul, you become unstoppable. When the desire of the ego becomes the desire of the soul, your free will and your divine will are aligned. You wouldn't have your ego if it was a bad thing. But you can use your ego in a negative way, in a counterproductive way if you forget those things. The point over here, big picture, nothing is happening to you. And everything that happens that seems to be a negative thing in your life, it's happening to bring you back on track. And when you can remember that, and you start seeing the things that are happening to you as things that are happening for you, you can realize the test, the lesson that it's trying to teach you. When you realize the lesson that it's trying to teach you, you receive that gift to help you go to the next level. And you don't have a need to receive a gift twice. But if I keep trying to give you a gift, you keep refusing it, I'm going to keep giving it to you. That's the school of life. And this change in perception, with a lot of different tools of how to do that, which is what the basis of this workshop is about. That's why it's called the transformation. It's this right over here that is the basis of everything that you are and everything that you experience. So if there's anything that you walk away with today, this. Many of you are coming into this room because you're experiencing ailments in your life. They're not there to hurt you. And they will remain until you learn the lesson of what they're trying to teach you. And this system can only help so much. If you're not willing to learn that lesson, it will be temporary relief. If you want permanent relief from the base of your being, you need to go to the base of your being, which is this, and not this. And you need to align this with this to be on track with your destiny and your purpose once again. So I hope that made sense over there. I know there are questions. What I will do over here for everybody.
Just leave that there, Jason.
Say it again?
Just leave that there.
Yeah, no problem.
So the analogy that I've lived through with my life is where ego in free will, I go in the divine will. And because you're in a space of service, this is how much free will one has. But in the human form, I mean, that's the divine will, because free will is created all that we are existing in. So where ego, I
I like it. I like it. And it makes sense. You need to use both. You need to use both. There's a lot of people in the spiritual community that say, kill the ego, death of the ego. No. It's like the doctors that say you don't need an appendix. It's stupid. Of course you need it. You have it in your body. They just don't know why you need it. Or you don't need your tonsils. Your tonsils are your immune regulators in your body. They're so dumb that they didn't know that. You went to med school for 10 years. So it's a lack of awareness of what's going on. If you have it, you need it. The question is, are you using it the right way, or are you using it at all? We've been using the ego in the wrong way for a very long period of time.
And may I share just one other
Yes, please.
energy experience that I've been working with radionics for quite some time.
Okay.
Is one of the baselines that we share is the general vitality of any known thing in the known universe. So the vitality of what you're resonating at this moment in time,
Yep.
it might be a figure of say 1,000. Just as a figure.
Yep.
Yeah. So people who have not come into the EE room, immediately after they leave this room, I can guarantee that they're resonating at 10,000 units. And I have not seen anyone go any higher than 10,000 at all.
You mean like a 10x?
As vitality. So everyone has a vitality that they're resonating at. It's the baseline. The vitality of the earth has its own frequency.
Yep.
It's readable. I have the ability to do that through the radionics. What I'm saying is that if you come in at resonating 1,000, I guarantee that when you walk out that door, you're resonating at 10,000 in vitality. And over a period of time, it will drop. So even though you are resonating at 1,000, you know, for the weeks up to that moment in time you walk through this door, you end up going at least 2,000 more units. So you end up 3,000 units, and you hold more light capacity, depending on what you're doing, what you talked about today, about
Absolutely.
food and water.
Yep.
And having that.
The goal is to increase the capacity of light that you can hold
So
within
what
the
I'm
vessel.
seeing also is that when we die, there is no reading, it's zero. Yeah? So what's happening with what I'm seeing, I have seen death through the EE systems because of where the soul's at. Their capacity, instead of going back to zero, which is no reading, they are building capacity of a frequency that I've not seen in the decades that I've worked
Through this
through
technology.
this technology, and they're actually passing over at a really high frequency according to their evolutionary process, of course. But because I watched my mum die, and I had 150 on her vitality thing, and I had enough time to do some death prayers with her. I'm travelling a great distance to be with her. So she had depleted her life force to zero when she passed. But what I'm seeing now is that people who are doing this work, changing their attitude, working internally with the I am principle, are increasing their frequencies towards death. It's not diminishing. They're gaining more capacity in their whole being. Does that make sense?
100%.
So for their future life, they're actually embodying all of this
Yep.
fundament.
It's a beautiful web of everything being created. Now, for that reason, by the way, with the technology, one of the things that may not be too relevant for a live stream, but we are bringing I got EE system to bring the technology to the actual event as well to enhance that experience. And for anybody who does get a ticket to something like that, I also got EE system to give people or attendees, whether live stream or in person, 8% off the technology for in-home use, for any personal use, which adds up. So I'm just going to write it down over here for anybody that's interested. We also included it in the prizes, which we're going to be giving 5 away. However, this amazing family wants to do it. But if you go right over here, jasonshurka.com /transformation. And for everybody over here, if you use the code HEALING50, you get $50 off the ticket as well. So I'll leave that right there for anybody that is interested. We can have some fun, but yeah, to answer your question, I'm very excited. To answer your question, I'm very excited for that
I already
event.
know it from through the Unified. We got also some off. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Awesome. Well, thank you for that support.
Looking forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
Only the time is a little bit awkward here.
I know, it's one
Middle of the night.
The timing is weird, but you do get access to all the recordings afterwards for the entire event. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll do 2 more questions before I lose my voice, and I'm gonna have to run out of here. Yes, and then we'll come to you right after.
How do you find your purpose?
Find my purpose.
I can give you a simple answer, but it's not easy to get to that point. Okay, the simple answer is find what excites you. Find what you're extremely passionate about. I know that sounds cliche, but find what you're extremely passionate about. Sit in that frequency, and naturally there will be an evolution that causes you to be able to live from that frequency. So it's not something that you may be able to know right away. But if you can steer in the direction of, for example, for me, I'll give you an example. People look at me sometimes, and they say, and they're like, you know, what an amazing person. For example, in the beginning of this event, what an amazing guy coming here, not charging and all that. But just to get things straight, there's a selfish part of this for me too, because this is what satisfies me. So selfless means you get nothing out of it. I don't think that there's such thing as something that's selfless. There's negative selfishness and positive selfishness. And for me, it just makes me happy when I see other people benefit from something. It turns me on. Not in a sexual way, but it makes me happy. It's like, it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. So I sat with that, but for a long time. I've ever since I was a kid, and that also comes from my upbringing, because I was brought up with a lot. And my parents were very smart, and they never took us on really lavish vacations because they didn't need to, because where we lived was amazing. They always took us on trips to see poor people all around the world, but bad. Like I went to Panama once, I was like 13, 12 or something like that. And my dad always made sure to bring us into the homes of the people who lived there, one way or another, even if he had to pay them. He went to this woman and he gave her $20. She was on the floor, she was freaking out. It was 1.5 years of her rent. She had 6 kids, and she lived in a shed on the dirt. She was paying rent. There was a landlord for something like that. I was in shock. So growing up like that and seeing that, if you really want to get technical, to an extent I felt guilty. Because I looked at everything around me and I'm like, why do I have this and that person doesn't? So from that place, it caused a good thing to come out. And it said, okay, well, I don't want to be the only person that experiences this. That's also why I left the business. Because like, how many buildings can you buy and sell and really be happy? It doesn't make me happy. So I left to do what makes me happy, but it makes me happy. It's not just a selfless thing of let's do to help others. It's helping others, which makes me happy. And that's what I think you need to look for when finding your purpose. Don't try to be this like guru Buddha that, I don't think it exists. I think that there's an exchange in the world. And if your exchange happens to be what you receive is good from something that you're doing that's good, that's the greatest formula there is, but there's still an exchange there. In short, find what you're passionate about, find what makes you happy. You may not know how to turn that into something, and never be guilty for making money. Ever. There's a lot of weird, maybe because I come from it, I'm able to have a different relationship with it. But there's a lot of people, especially in the spiritual community, they're like, I can't make money off this. What do you mean you can't make money? Money's energy.
That's right.
What do you mean you can't make money? So you have to live in a hut because you're helping people? All the more reason you should be living lavishly. If you can afford it, take care of yourself. If you can afford it, have a good time. But don't let that having a good time come in the way of helping others. And that's the biggest thing I would say when you start going down that rabbit hole, and if you really go in that direction, your relationship with money is going to be a huge part of it. Money is an energy. The difference between 1,000 and 1,000,000 is a few zeros. That's it. That's the difference. It's a zero on a screen. It's an energy. And the more you create, the more you're entitled to receive. But if you receive without continuing that process of giving, I just interviewed Ray on a different interview. He said something really amazing that I shared on Telegram. He said, if you receive a blessing and don't share it with others, that blessing will become a curse. Why? Because when you receive a blessing, that blessing is energy. Let's say money, for example, okay? You receive this money from something that you did, just to use that as a tool to visualize. And now you hoard it for yourself. You're not letting it go. What are you doing? You're stopping the movement, the flow of energy. You need to keep it moving. You need to keep it going out. People who don't understand it, they hold on to it. The most miserable people that I know are the richest people that I know. They're miserable. They're miserable. They're miserable human beings. Because they come from a place of let's hold all of it. They're not rich. They're the poorest people I know. They just happen to have a lot of money. So your relationship with money is a big part of that as well, because that can stop you in terms of finding that passion if you have a relationship that's counterproductive to you. Money is not a bad thing. It can be used for bad. It can be used for good. The only reason why I could do everything this trip alone cost me $60,000. Why do you think we could do it? Because we have money coming in. That's why. Flights are very expensive. Hotels are expensive. $200 a night over and over and over again with food and flights, they add up. The only reason we can do something like this is because money is in the system, because that energy is moving. And so long as you use it the right way, you can keep moving forward. So keep that in mind with finding that purpose.
Jason, first of all, just wanted to say thank you so much for everything you've done. It's just greatly appreciated. So I wish you a long and healthy life.
Thank you.
I was going to ask about how you've managed to achieve what you've achieved at such a young age, but I think you've answered that really well, so thank you. Just two quick questions, if I may.
Yeah.
And probably the second one is perhaps more important than the first one.
Sure.
Do you remember meeting Ray? The second question is a more general question than that.
What do you mean, do I remember meeting him?
Ray your first contact with the light system.
What do you mean, do I remember?
How did it occur?
Oh, it happened like 4 years ago. Yeah. I mean, the whole situation. Okay, go to the second question. Then.
Yeah, the whole situation. But if that's too long a question, and my second question what would you hope to achieve? What are you hoping to achieve, perhaps over the next 12 months or even longer term?
I have a good answer for that. Okay, the first answer in short is just a person that approached me in New York City. It was a regular conversation. I didn't really understand what was going on, but it was targeted. I just didn't know that. And over a period of we exchanged contacts, and over a period of 2 years or so, it was in June of 2018, and February 6th of 2020 is when the first big meeting started. So what is that? About a year and 8 months, something like that. So over that period of time, our relationship evolved. I understood more and more and more about him, and that's when I was brought more directly to the organization with more people involved. So that's the short answer of how that whole thing happened. The second part, which is the fun part, is it's funny. So what I'm about to say, I don't want to do, but I feel that it will be a very effective way to kind of shake things up. I have to be 35 to do it, but my plan is I want to file to run for president of the United States.
Oh my God.
Just to mess with everybody. just to mess with everybody. No, I didn't tell him that part. But that's part of my longer term goal. More like it'll be fun, not to win. I don't want to go. It may end up like that. I don't know, but that's not my goal.
Is it a challenge?
My goal is to mess with them where it hurts.
Jason,
Like
is it a bit like Marianne Williamson? That kind of.
yeah, but a lot more powerful. I think she's too weak.
Yeah.
You need somebody that's crazy, but also, I just don't think I look around, and again, maybe I'm not that right person, but I feel I could do a better job than them. I'm looking at them and I'm like, you got Trump. That's like, he's crazy, but he also doesn't speak the right way, and it's a downfall. And if he spoke the right way, it could do a lot of things different. But there's a fault over there. It's like I'm looking at all these people and trying to take the good and then saying, okay, how can I make that a unique combination to really bring a force?
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
You interviewed Kennedy.
Yeah, that came out today.
What are your thoughts?
I don't think he's going to win.
No.
I don't think he's going to win. I wish him all the best. I'm just being real. I don't think he's strong enough either. You need a positive psychopath. You need somebody that doesn't see left and right, but that can also be balanced in what they do. And you need somebody crazy. Nobody else is going to run for president unless you're crazy.
So we might not have presidency at all.
That's right.
Well, the way that I'm planning on doing it, just so you know, is what colors do you get when you mix red and blue?
Green.
I was confused for a second. No, you get green. I'm sorry, you get purple. What colors are unified? What's the color of purple? It's purple. That's the theme of the organization.
Yeah.
I didn't plan this when I first started. But what I'd like to do is use Unified as a vehicle to fund a campaign through the people. Instead of going to big donors. Because I've been on the other side of campaigns. And I'll tell you exactly what these big real estate companies do. including to an extent my own family growing up. I've seen it. I sat down with, you guys know who Mayor Bill de Blasio is? You know Mayor Eric Adams? Okay, he was at my house. And I'm sitting with these losers at my table. And we need to build a Whole Foods. And you need permits to build a Whole Foods. So what do? You give them a $5,000 donation. That's how the world works. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think it's legal bribery. That's what you're doing. And I don't want to create a system that has that in it. That's why I want to build it in a way where the organization is funded by the people. It's not, you know, some billionaire wants to go and build a big complex, so they're going to come and, you know, let's give him something. Because you know what else people do? Seeing it from the inside, you don't just fund one candidate, you fund both. That way you can't lose.
That's right.
Okay, that's what's done. I've seen it done. You've seen it done. You fund both because you know one of them are going to win. You throw 10,000 there, and you throw 10,000 there. One of them wins. They become your friend, and now you get a permit to build a Whole Foods and sell it for $40 million. That's how the real estate world works, and that's how the rest of the world works, at least in the United States. So, say it again. Same here. I'm not surprised. The idea is to break that, but to break that and shake it, and it's going to piss people off. And I hope I live through it. See what happens.
Who's your running mate?
I don't know.
Scott McKay.
No, definitely not. Too violent. Too violent.
Yeah, right.
Too violent.
What about Michael Jacob?
No. You need I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Have you been
We're talking
approached
9 years. I'll meet a lot of interesting people by then. And we'll see if it even happens. But that is, to answer your question, that's one of my goals. Not because I want to, but because I feel that you can really my goal is, how do we get to the goal of what we're trying to get to? Now let's do what needs to be done to get to that goal. And I don't see my goal as something to shift 1 million or 2 million people. I genuinely want to change the world, and I don't mind risking my life along the way. If I die along the way, if I can go back in time after, God forbid, if something happens to me, I wouldn't change it. I'm good with that.
Would you have it back in your COS?
Yes, that's safe.
Yeah. I don't know if they would support it at that point, but let's see.
Did Ray ever say why TLS sought you out?
They didn't just saw.
How did they know you?
It's getting into weird things.
Frequencies.
Yeah, it's
okay.
reading frequencies and light signatures and things like that. But I wasn't the only one that they sought out. There's 8,500 people that are a part of that organization. I'm just a more public figure in terms of how I represent them and how they want me to represent them. So I don't know.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump's part of TLS?
No, he's
No.
He is part of another organization. But he's not part of it.
And are they on the same page or not?
Those organizations work together. Sometimes they have their problems. They're still human. But yes, they generally, the organization that he's a part of, I can't give by name, but yes, they've worked together in the past in terms of using different, just like dark organizations work together, light organizations work together, but both sides have their problems. That's important to keep in mind. You're still dealing with human beings. You're still dealing with the ability to make mistakes, and mistakes are made. Mistakes are made sometimes.
Have they approached you with the presidency idea, or is that?
1 second, I'll go there and come right to you. What was that?
Have you been approached with the idea to run for president, or is that?
No, if I was approached with that, I would see a very big problem. Because that's usually how it goes down when they want to ruin your life and cause you to No, my intention, as a matter of fact, when I brought it up to Ray, he's like, no. And I'm like, well, I'm going, I think it's going to be a cool idea. But maybe not, maybe things will change in 9 years. I have no idea. But my current intention is that, yes.
These people here are so good. They are collecting money to buy for a little boy such a unit. My question is, for a whole 1 unit is enough?
When she means one unit, she means one box.
Oh, no. Because what did we say?
Doesn't
You
work.
need a minimum of 4
Four is
to create a stable terrestrial field.
So when they say a cube, is that the 4?
A cube I've seen do great things, but a cube is nowhere near as strong as something like this.
Yeah, well, I understand, but this is for people. I'm saying, is this going to help this little boy in the home.
We're gonna have to give it to the boy and figure that out. Back to my first answer, I can't give you this is exactly what's gonna happen. It doesn't work like that. Now, I've seen some people and the cube has done wonders. I've seen other people that didn't work as well.
One cube would be 4 of it. Yes.
One cube would be 4 of these, but not in the same way. It would be pointing out. So the cube works a little different. When you have the screens facing each other, you have the photonic collision. When you have the cube, which is the screens pointing out, you have everything that I explained, but photonic collision. So you still have the color therapy, you still have the Schumann resonance, you still have the Fibonacci sequence. You have all those on the side of the within the spectrum. And then you have the toroidal field, which is a weaker one, but it's still a toroidal field being created through the black boxes on the inside of the cube. The one thing that the cube lacks, that the bigger system creates, is the photonic collision. That's the main difference between.
You say in one of your interviews, which I heard you on YouTube, that you live with the system.
Yeah, I have it in my office.
So you have 24 everywhere?
No. But generally everywhere I go, like for example on tour, I'm in one every single day, which is often. I've been on multiple tours since May.
But at your home, what do you?
In my home I have cubes because I can't fit a 24-unit system. And I'm not sure I would bring a 24-unit system into my home for me because I'm not dealing with anything crazy. Yeah. My parents, they have 4 cubes. They have 2 stacked on top of each other in front of their bed. My sister's daughter, my niece, she's like 9 months old. She has a cube in her room. My sister has a cube in her room. We roll around with cubes. We like our cubes.
So basically a cube is a minimum.
A cube is a minimum. You can't go less than a cube. And again, thankfully we're not dealing with anything severe. So I see cubes as number 1 more is preventative along the way. However, I've seen individuals in crazy situations that, especially kids, because they're like, it's a kid versus an adult. It's like a kid needs less alcohol to get drunk versus an adult.
Yeah,
it's
correct.
that same idea, but differently. So when it comes to kids, I've seen it do great things, but that doesn't mean that every kid will react the same way. And the only way that we'll be able to tell something like that is by trying.
Who manufactures them, Jason? Where are they manufactured? Okay.
I'm not on the side of actually.
Right.
Yeah, that's the system and how they do everything. Yeah.
So say, is Australia particularly, have they taken this technology, like we've got 5 centres in Adelaide and there's like centres everywhere in Australia. Are we quite prolific in our uptake of the technology?
Yeah, you guys
Compared
were
to our
about
population
2nd or 3rd in line after
Yeah.
the US. The US is number 1. I think Australia or Canada is number 2, and one of them is number 3.
What about the UK?
The UK is number 4. The US is very big, correct. So in short, there's also, this is where the business side comes in of supply and demand. So we have 600 people on a waiting list that want to open up centers. I would love to do it, but it's not the right thing to do. Because if we open too many too soon, centers like this, back to money. They need money to operate. They need money to be able to continue paying their staff and paying their bills. And they're not doing it for free. They need to eat from their bills. Yeah, they need to eat from the money that's coming in. And in my opinion, these people should be taken care of the right way. They shouldn't be living on the edge. They should be taken care of the right way so they can go and open up a second center. And the only way that can be done is if enough people go and, number 1, share the word and bring the proper demand to this center and centers around the world and continue bringing that. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of people, they like, I don't know, it's this thing with money where they expect this thing for free. There's nothing that's free in the world. As a matter of fact, the things that are free are the most dangerous things in the world. They're the problems in our world because you're paying for it. You're just paying for it in a way that's detrimental in many other ways that most people don't understand. So when it comes to unified healing, when it comes to these centers around the world, you know how that money is being used. You know where you're putting it, as opposed to giving it to some God knows where, and they probably don't even get it to you, and then they end up giving you pills and paying for that through your insurance. That ends up killing you, it gets you sicker. It's a whole thing. So, but when it comes to what we want to see in the world, we have to support those things. But back to supply and demand, again, I would love to open a lot more all around the world. I'd love to. I hate when somebody comes and says, "I want to open," I have to say no. The only reason I have to say no is because we need to bring that demand even higher to be able to justify more supply. So that's where that whole thing is coming from, and that's where the business mind is very important, to do it the right way, to not do it in a reckless way. But that call to action goes out to you guys. You guys need to keep coming to places like this, keep spreading the word, do whatever you possibly can to spread the word, and let people know about what's going on here. Do I don't know, movie nights here, events. I know they have one event a month over here. Enjoy them, bring that community together. A lot of us are trying to find like-minded people. These are the places where you find them, because who else is going to come here other than the people that understand what's going on around the world? So it's a beautiful place to bring that community together. And I don't think you guys should only keep it in this center. Meet people in this center and go do events around Adelaide, and host dinners together and create a community. That's what people are looking for. People are looking for a place to belong. A lot of the people that do things. Oh, you guys have a center?
At our center.
Okay, there we go. So a lot of the people that what's it called? A lot of the people that even are on the other side of the spectrum, when it comes to, they want to go and things with the medical system and vaccinations and all that, most of them don't actually believe it. Most of them don't actually know what they're doing. They do it because they want to belong, because they don't want to feel ostracized. So if you can create the feeling of belonging in a productive way, as opposed to them conforming to something that will kill them, all of us will have a community that's incredible all around the world. This is huge. 380 centers as of the latest numbers. In a year and a half, that's crazy numbers. With stopping almost another 600 or 700. That means there was 1,000 that was supposed to open. We stopped it for obvious reasons. But 380 centers is a big community around the world. It's in over 44 countries around the world. So, first of all, thank you guys. Thank you guys for absolutely for being a part of this as well.
I came to know about the system in Singapore, and Singapore has got one center.
There we go. You see, Singapore. I've never been to Singapore. I'm going to go to Singapore.
Oh, yeah. He said to me, I'm so lucky that I meet you. So you will want to.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to do one more question. I gotta go to sleep soon. Yes.
No, you.
Well, I was wanting to ask you, what is the greatest gift you have received since being part of ED System and Unified Healing? No, I'm not talking financial, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Could be anything.
I'll tell you the truth, it really hasn't changed my life financially.
No, I know that.
I'm saying financially, I just oversee a lot more money. The way that I live, it's just become more inconvenient.
What's the greatest blessing you've received from all this?
Well, I'll give you two answers. Number one is what I see in terms of the impacts of people around the world. That's the greatest blessing, is the impacts that I really get to see on a first-hand around the world. And maybe I'm wrong on this, and this is a completely different topic, but I feel that a very big gift that I got was my girlfriend. I don't think that it was supposed to happen this soon. I think that it was supposed to happen later. And she's been a really a good part of my life, a really good part of my life, and super supportive. And she's meeting me in Australia in a few days, and it's awesome. So I would say a combination of what I'm seeing directly coupled with her, really, it keeps me moving and going forward. Yeah. All righty, thank you.
I'm not sure what's doing my head in the most. This whole thing, all the fact you're 26. I think at the end of this, normally what you do is you heap praise on the guest speaker, and everyone knows how fantastic Jason is and what he's done and how he's giving. But I totally get where you're coming from, where it's not you, because this whole thing. Every time I walk in this room and look at these things, and 18 months ago, I've never heard of Jason Shurka before. I've never heard of EE before. And my wife showed me this little video about some American guy talking to some lady I don't know whose sister's dog really liked this thing. So let's mortgage everything we've possibly got and work for the last 40 years and put it into something that no one's ever heard of. Hope people come to the door, but that is just how it is. And I like that you had to work in miracle into that interview, because that's what this whole thing is. And the thing I'm really excited about is now you're all part of that. You're part of this miracle. And I guess also what I really want to do is just honour the other centre owners, because they're as bonkers as us. And they'd all agree it's what you're called to do. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I didn't do one business plan, not one spreadsheet. I watched this video and decided where they're line. So if the other centre owners, let's get you guys just to stand up. So Jane and Alison. Say thank you so much for having the courage to do it, and I really encourage everyone to really support these guys too. If your neck's hurt from looking at us gigantic people, support these guys. I think these guys opened their centre in December. Is that right?
At Marion.
Yeah, cool. At Marion, and Hardy's going up at Chunga, a beautiful spot in the hills. So support those guys. Right? It's not like there's any shortage of sick people around. So.
What about to happen in Mildura?
Very good. One in Mildura.
Awesome.
So please support those guys. So I guess moving forward, that whole divine and ego, and I guess I want to encourage you that there's a reason why you're here tonight. All right, that you're a part of this miracle that's occurring. It's something that's growing in momentum. And aside from just this fundraiser to help this little boy, and I thought your questions were excellent about the cube, but I guess at the end of the day, he's far better off with the cube than he is without the cube. So I'm super excited to see. But I loved your honesty about why you're doing it, and know what I agree is selfless. The reason why I'm doing this is for my kids. I want to see the world that I give to them to be better than the world where it is now. Like, it's gone actually down in my lifetime, not up.
For all the kids.
Yeah, 100%. But selfishly, I'm kind of fond of them. I like other kids. Not anymore. So join with us and help make the world a better place. So not only just help support this fundraiser and help this little boy hopefully have a chance in the future, but go out and be the change you want to see. Like, go out, and even something simple as just loving the person next to you, right? That's such a rare commodity in the world. We've forgotten how to care about the person next to us. It's all about me and what I can get for me. And that's what this is. It's a wave about increasing consciousness to love. And so that's, I guess, my challenge for you guys tonight is, as you leave here energized at a higher frequency, go out and love and spread the word. Send them to the centres, because it's not just about healing physically from illnesses, but it's also about increasing consciousness so you're more creative, so you have inspired ideas and just be the best version of yourself. I think that's what excites me most about the centre. So that's my challenge to you. Do you guys go out and do that? In terms of the fundraiser, you'll see it there's some notes on the walls. There's our bank details. Just make sure when you do send a donation through, if you can, please put down your name as the reference and just put EE Cube so we know what it's for.
So we can put your name into the drawer.
And we can give cash to...
100%. Zach loves cash.
Zach is the cash man.
So he'll put it in an envelope.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so what we're going to do is, we might even have more prizes come through hopefully the next few days.
I'm expecting we will, because there's other businesses who said that they would donate, but we're just waiting to hear. So that's why we set the draw date for the 26th.
Yeah, so 26 we're going to draw it. I was going to option Jason up, but now he's going to go.
She's not here.
She'll be here shortly. Cool. So that's it. So I think I was probably going to hand over to you just for the wind up about the bath salts and everything else.
So we've loved having you guys here tonight. As part of your ticket price, we have a bag of detox salts for you all to take home. Now, those of you who've been to the EE system, you'll know all about the detox bath. I'm hoping everyone else has read all the information we sent you, but if not, when you're in this environment, one of the main things that happens is our cells get energized, and when that happens, our body wants to clean out heaps of stuff that shouldn't be in there. So, the detox bath salts, we give you a whole bag, put the whole bag full into a bath, and then sit in it for 30 minutes. It has a very powerful drawing effect on the body, and it will draw toxins out through the skin. I can't emphasize how important a part of this whole process it is. So please don't skip it. The only people we have who ring the next day and go, I feel awful, what happened? I say, did you do your bath? Oh, nah. Did you drink lots of water? Nah. So don't do that. Please drink lots tonight. Please drink lots tomorrow to the point where it's annoying you how much you're going to the toilet. That's how much you want to drink. And please do your bath before you go to bed tonight. I know it's late, but your body will love you for it. So we will give you a bag of those on the way out. I think that's the most important bits. Thank you so much for coming and actually being part of the answer. One thing I did want to mention, obviously we are a unified healing centre, and that's why Jason is here. Part of what we do, and part of you guys coming to this centre, is by being part of the Unified Healing Network, we actually help contribute money towards putting other centres in other countries that cannot afford it, so that their people can go for free, which is what happened in India.
I forgot to speak about India.
Yeah,
Sorry, I totally forgot. India, just to add to that, we brought a 24-unit system there. We brought it to an ashram over there. Indians have a very different culture. A lot of people think I'm Indian. I'm not. But Indians have a very different culture in terms of how they do things. And the first, I would say, 5 months was a lot of figuring things out of, like one day, one Indian guy just decided to pick up a rack and move it. Like, well, we can't fly, 40 hours on 3 planes to realign this. So then we have to go and figure out how to realign it. There were a lot of video calls involved. And thank God right now, was it you who asked that question? Who asked the question about India? Oh, it was you? Okay, sorry. I'm getting confused. So in short, right now, everything's up and running, but it took us about 6 months from February. So up until August, I figured that whole thing out, and everything couldn't. And it's basically an open center that anybody can go into. It's a meditation hall. It fits about 500 people in an ashram in Tirupati in India. What we've learned, though, is moving forward, instead of doing it in ways like that, we're going to be more so bringing it to like schools and organizations. For example, organizations, even in the U.S., it doesn't need to be in India. It could be organizations in the U.S. that deal with, let's say, sex trafficking victims of sexual abuse, where, again, to make it so it doesn't impact businesses of centers around the world, it's for that organization with individuals from that organization specifically to help individuals in need. So that's going to be the angle that we go, instead of just saying, okay, here's an ashram, let's bring it and we're done. We're going to be working more directly with really organized organizations that have people, there to do what needs to be done. So that was our learning process for me.
Can you please give the information about India? Because I have friends there. And
if you go to just unifiedhealing.com already, you can find it on the website, and it gives you all the information on where that center is.
Does
that work?
They're all new. They're all new. They're too new.
That's better. Okay. Right there, and that's where you can find more information.
Okay, great.
All right.
Yeah, so what I was reason I brought that up is because whenever you come to this centre, you're actually part of making the world a better place, because part of the money that we get that comes in goes to Unified Healing. So it actually has a flow-on effect. I'm a massive believer in that it's better to give than receive, and I try and live my life with that philosophy. And I love the fact that you guys are involved in that by being part of what we do here. So yeah, that's the last thing I really wanted to say. It's been beautiful having you here. I feel like you've all come over for tea.
I just want to take a quick picture of her. I'm trying to do this in every year. Are you ready? Okay, there we go.
I'll find a day for that. Thank you guys very much.
I'll stay for just a few minutes and I'm going to have to.
Let's give them one big ball.
Thank you. A lot to cover.
All right.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
No swarm.
I know you do have questions. They could help, but there's other things that you would rather want to do along the way. Different types of clothes that you can take, different types of
I don't know if that should stay there, but
Yeah, I know. Try not to trip on it. Maybe. Turn it off.